Ignorance.
Oh yeah, like I mean, at the end of the day, you need just to think for yourself rather than just blindly following what people say. Because
Someone's careful to take people at face value, because you have to sort of wonder, what did they get? Well, did they get anything from getting you to agree with them, or fall in line?
What's the angle, really? Or sort of what are they getting out of it, as you say? Like, because
I like that saying more though. What's the angle? Because I just hear that in a 1920s watch. What's the angle?
What's the angle?
And speaking of which, that whole thing that we're talking about, that example I showed you, that Colin Geddes podcast about the way they all talk really loud because to make sure they got picked up by the boom mic.
Yeah.
We're gonna use this sacred code over here, see? No, here.
Don't tell anyone.
Yeah, see? The way everyone ended a sentence with, see, if you're a gangster.
I wonder where that comes from, like that sort of, I'm sure that there must be like at least one or two people that actually spoke like that.
Type into Google, why did everyone in the 20s end the sentence with say?
Yeah.
And then pray that Google doesn't think you're like being racist. No, white people said this.
He's on the list.
Hey, say. No, see.
But I suppose it's a bit like us saying, so it is.
I don't know what that means.
Such, so it is. And I remember I was watching The Mandalorian, and there's that guy who's on like the big sort of like tadpole with teeth things. And what is it he says at the end of any sentence? It's just like, so I said, or something like that. And I was just wondering,
was it the small thing? And I think it was Jeff Bridges did the voice for it.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that now.
And I just thought, that sounds a bit daft. But then I was thinking through and I was like, well, us saying so it is at the end of every sentence is a bit daft.
You know what? I've actually noticed it seems to be, well, I was going to say it's down out, but no, the fact that we can recognise it mustn't be. But so it is, so he is, so she is. My mum uses it all the time. I think sometimes I think that some people use it when they don't know how to end a sentence.
I think so, yeah. Like, I think I do it all. I've noticed I've done it, especially whenever I criticise, that character speaking like that. I caught myself doing it, but I think you're right that, I don't know what the grammatical structure of it is, but you're sort of finishing halfway through, but as you say, you don't know how to like tag on a little bit of an end to the sentence. So you just sort of end it the way you started, I suppose. Bit of symmetry.
Like, not to lower the tone, but thinking about it, like it sort of dilutes what can come before. He's a dickhead, so he is.
Yeah.
But then that clip I showed you as well about the whole thing with Canadians and that source of oh,
that's right. Yeah, that was
that comes from Victorian London. Apparently that was to like apologize to someone whenever you thought that you were talking and you were boring them. It was like a thing to say as if to say sorry, I'm boring you. So the way Canadians are even apologizing whenever they're just having a normal sentence.
Very Canadian thing to do.
Yeah. Hey, buddy. But I've always wanted to go to Canada.
Yeah, like I think the Rockies would be absolutely stunning to see. I think it's sort of just the natural landscape there is stunning.
I had a team leader that actually, she came from Canada. Right. I think it was Banff.
Mm-hmm.
She mentioned, but probably one of the nicest people I've worked with. But still pretty. She was nice, but she wasn't. When you get nice walkover. She would still tell you what she's thinking, and she would still be critical in a good way. But yeah, she left here and moved back over with her husband, who was from here, with their 2 daughters. But apparently he was like a bit of an outdoor guy that liked mountain biking and all that. So that would have been.
That's his dream. Like,
the only thing that would put me off would be, I've seen the size of the birds over there. If I was going for a hike and I seen a grizzly come towards me,
I would need like a 12 gauge or something, like, just in case.
You would need something, because like have you ever seen footage of how quick a bird can move? I thought, okay, they're big, they're slow, then you could just jog away from them. No chance.
They're big, but they're all muscle.
Oh,
Same idea with like hippos. I mean, I remember hearing like they were the deadliest animal, and it's like, ah, you're talking nonsense.
Yeah.
But then you like see like a
and then crushing like a watermelon or
Yeah,
a
but,
pumpkin
like-
in their mouth.
and like I just saw like a drawing, and it's literally underneath that layer of skin is just all muscle. It's not like these big flabby things. They're just like they're literally running tanks.
Yeah, but they look ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of animals, and as bad as it sounds, there's a load of animals to me in African plains look comical, but they would fuck you up.
Oh, flip, yeah.
like an ostrich to me is I think it's hilarious. I don't know why. To me, it's a hilarious looking animal because
it's like a pom pom with a neck.
It looks like someone grabbed Sinead O'Connor and stretched her neck, and she's wearing like a feather boa, or put out like a fur coat on her. But like have you ever seen them running through pellet?
And they would peck you to death, like.
Well, that and apparently their legs and apparently their kicks would do in. But yeah, I mean, I think they've been known to kill animals you would classify as more dangerous. Then the same hippos.
Like I mean, you think big, slow, dopey looking things, but I mean, like
they kill
vicious.
more. They apparently kill more people in Africa than any other animal. Like that's over elephants in heat, and that's over
tigers, lions, yeah.
Like because apparently elephants, from what I've heard, for the most part, are pretty chill. But when I can't remember if it's when they're in season, males get very aggressive and territorial. So like if you, I don't know, I would imagine they're probably pretty protective of their young as well.
Yeah, I would say
they're probably trampling. Yeah. And you know, if they've seen you before, remember that. Don't forget.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's the thing. If they catch you being a jerk, they're gonna stomp on you, like. And I mean, I remember that it was always that comical thing you saw in cartoons of an elephant being scared of a mouse.
Yeah.
But I remember MythBusters did an episode on that, and it's actually true.
Really?
Like, I can't remember the exact like experiment they did for it, but it was basically had the elephant walk like in a straight line or whatever, and then they had like this mouse in the way,
and it wouldn't go,
and it just went the other direction. So it's not as if it's going up on its back legs and freaking out,
but it's like
it's avoiding it.
It's like, what's that?
Yeah.
But I've seen footage of things similar with other animals. Maybe there's like a weird mentality of it's. Well, I suppose like some humans with mice are like.
Oh, I mean, it sounds like people think I'm nuts, and they're probably all right. I would rather take a rat than it would take a mouse.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, don't get me wrong. A rat bites me and I'm dead, but I think it's a mouse just moves far too quick.
I think that's why people don't like spiders. Because if spiders were like,
just casually plodding along, sauntering down the street,
people would be like, "Oh, there's a spider. I'll just avoid that." But whenever they're watching it, and this thing is the equivalent of the Flash going across the room, people go, "Where'd it go?"
It splitters and it disappears. You're just thinking it's creeping up behind you.
It's plotting world domination behind a bookshelf somewhere.
Like, just wait till you sleep.
Yeah, I'm going to kidnap your family. But when you hear the stories of trophy hunter or poacher out in Africa attempted to kill some animal, and in the process they get mauled or something.
Yeah, you're just like,
I have absolutely no sympathy.
I was like,
well, there we go.
Just right.
Paid out, didn't it?
Hopefully that animal got a good meal from it.
Yeah, like I can understand if, like, say, and I know there still is. There's tribes in parts of Africa that they don't have the luxury of going down to the nearest spar, so they maybe have to like
I think this. I obviously haven't done any research on this, so I could be talking nonsense. My assumption is though that if people coming over and poaching for money and poaching to like have trophies and stuff weren't there, what they were doing wouldn't have such a negative impact. I think it's just because the population has been dumbed down or like damaged so much from like poaching that what they're doing is actually making a difference now. When you think about it, they're relatively small numbers.
Yeah.
And they're hunting every day, but also they're making use of all the parts of the animal, so they're actually being fairly economical or environmental.
Well, I would agree with the ones that that if they are going to use fins, but the trophy ones where they're you've seen ones where some woman's like shot a leopard just to pose beside it
and just
like put it in a as a rug on her floor and just like no harm. And not only that as well, right? I'm of the belief that if you feel like you want to, if you feel that you want to be masculine, go toe to toe with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see how you go.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, whenever I'm saying I'm okay with it, in one respect, it's the tribe, the folks who are native living there who are doing it for survival.
Yeah, to me that takes a lot of guts because they don't have the luxury of a high caliber rifle up on the hill somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. They're not in some like hunter's nest somewhere. But like, again, I'm fairly ignorant, but I remember hearing that at least historically, that would have been part of like that sort of process of becoming a man.
Oh yeah.
Here's our hand-to-hand weapons.
Yeah.
Go and take a lion or go take a leopard or something, and just like fair flipping dudes. Like
I can get that because I suppose it makes sense that if you're going to be a hunter-gatherer provider for your family and your people, you need that exposure. Because if, like, say one day we're going, we've got no food, we're starving, and we'll certainly. What are these things, by the way? Holy shit!
You can't really learn that. Whenever you really need to know how to do it, that's not when you start learning.
That is a perfect example of having someone, whenever you start a job and they're effectively they take you under their wing and keeping you right. That's a perfect example of when it's needed because they're going right. Well, this thing's 3/4 of a ton and it's got razor sharp claws and it's looking at me and it can move fairly fast. I think it should be all right. Totally. No, maybe not.
Isn't it like I can't remember the numbers on it, but basically, like someone did a poll for like guys in America, and it was more than 50% at least thought they could take a lion, and it's like, you guys are so flipping dumb.
I don't know if that stems from
I think it's just
ignorance, as in like being thick ignorance, as opposed to and then there's the other side of ignorance, and which a case of being brimming with self-confidence that is bordering on stupidity.
I think it's probably genuinely not knowing the size of the animal. Like you think, oh, it's like a big dog, or it's like a big house cat, but those paws are about that size.
Says your head.
One swipe and your ribs are dust. Like
sure, that there's a documentary about it, and the name completely escapes me, but it was a well-known I don't even know if there's a specific term for a study of bears, but this guy
bearologist.
Yeah. He lived on this in this wilderness for about 13 years or something, living closely with bears, studying them, learning them, and having a few close calls. But yeah, that was it. It was the documentary was following him, on and off this period of time. But yeah, I think it was like a week before he was trying to give, go right, I've done all I need to. That sure enough, unfortunately, he ran afoul of a bear. Now he never antagonized. Well, he maybe just
wrong place, wrong time, sort of.
He was maybe one of those people that I don't know if he got to the point. He got lucky for so long, and he got overconfident, going, "No, I know bears,
and they know me," sort of thing.
Yeah. But apparently, what makes it more disturbing is I think it was the footage was caught. Well, the sound was caught of him effectively being eaten alive. So, but yeah, I mean, I think there was. I can't remember if it was that or another case, but they were pretty much saying that based on like the evidence of what was left, they were saying that like a bear would have just one swing, and like you say, your head, and to think that something has the power to do that is crazy,
terrifying. Like, there's a reason why we live in houses and cities and
to protect us from the cows.
Exactly, the deadly cows. But like, it sounds silly, but even a cow as an example, like very few people these days have physically seen a cow up close. Like I remember I was chatting to someone, and I think maybe their son or something like that had went, to a field or whatever, and came back, and the father was like I don't know whether he was a farmer but a country fella, and the son came back and was like, I didn't realize how big cows were, because a lot of folks like just drive, or if you're seeing them, like we're fortunate I suppose over here that you can go drive half an hour and you'll see cows, sheep in the countryside.
Yeah.
But you're not seeing them up close.
No.
So it's like that Father Ted skit, it's like
small, far away. Yeah.
But like they're big. They're as big as a car.
Same as horses, right?
Oh, I
seen them up close for the first time. I was like, but I know we are pretty small, but yeah, I mean,
but apparently the reason we look bigger to horses because of the way their eyes work.
On the either side of their head,
like they're like magnify.
Oh, so the lens on their eye.
So like obviously it's not as if we're like massive to them, but like we look bigger than we are.
Like for example, the way like a fisheye lens.
Yeah.
Has that weird effect.
Which, when you look at their eyes, it kind of makes sense. But I mean, I remember going over the head of a horse. So whenever I was riding,
really,
this was, must have been 11 or 12 maybe, and we were down south. And we're doing like this pony, not like a pony track. We were helping to muck out stables and all that stuff, and we went for a wee ride. And I was on this horse, and it was like a rocky sort of slight incline, and the horse stumbled, but I'd made the mistake of leaning forward, so its front legs buckled, and I just went.
Oh yeah,
straight over.
So it wasn't like it went. I've had enough.
Oh no! Like, it wasn't the horse's fault. It was mine. But like, I got up quite quickly. Like I did like that sort of like barrel, like safety roll. Just to get up straight away. And it wasn't because I was a badass or anything. It was a flipping massive horse falling behind me and I got crushed.
I know the self-preservation kicks in straight away.
But I mean, the horse was fine, and I mean, I'm sure people don't care if I was fine.
But you're here.
I said, I'm still here. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But now, like, they're massive creatures, but they're obviously beautiful creatures. But again, I don't think we realize. Because again, I always find it crazy when people say big dogs. They think Labradors, but me growing up, it's always just that's a regular sized dog.
You see an Irish Wolfhound, and you go,
yeah, like a Great Dane, or like one of those sort of dogs. Like those are big dogs to me. Whilst like the dogs that I have now, like they're sort of about this size.
Mm-hmm.
That's a normal sized dog for a lot of folks. For me, that's a small dog.
Yeah,
I think it's just, I suppose it's frame of reference more than anything.
It's like seeing like certain types of German Shepherd and stuff. You're like,
yeah,
See, there's a random thought came into my head. When we were talking about cows, and obviously they lived on fields and all that. So before like agriculture and all existed and farming, the way there's moors.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a connection? Moors. That
they're calling for their homeland.
That's it. It turned out they would want to go back to that. Moors.
Kick me back. I want to go back.
Moors. But yeah, I mean, I've heard stories as well of people being killed by cows.
I mean, they're dangerous as well. Like, I mean, I remember there's been adverts on RTV for like around calving season, and it's because if a farmer isn't like checking the calf, and the mother's there and thinks that you're harming the thing, they will kill you. I mean, they're big, heavy,
and they'll just sit on you.
They'll just barge you and crush you. Like,
I'm not no harm. Like it's no. There's part of me is like, what a way to go. This is another weird thought that popped into my head. Talk about stream of consciousness. Any watching this thing, that section.
For those who don't know, that's basically what this podcast is going to be about. Like, I mean, I suppose for a bit of context, I mean, we're going to episode 2 before we're giving the story, but like, we started doing like sort of programming stuff. Like I was teaching you programming.
Yeah.
But for maybe the 4 hours that we were doing it, I think we spent about 3 hours actually just talking through goodness knows what.
Yeah.
Like the only reason like we could know what we're talking about now, just because we're recording it.
Yeah.
Like if we were to ask you like tomorrow what we were talking about, I couldn't tell you for the life of me.
No. It's the same as like whenever people say about, I want to see such and such in the stand up. You're going, oh, brilliant. Was it good? Yeah, really good. What'd they say?
Oh, it was funny.
you can get a handle on roughly how you felt at that time.
Yes.
And you're going, oh, my face was sore. I don't know what to say, but my face was sore.
You're rhyming off symptoms rather than like what they were talking about.
Yeah. A bit of pee came out. Don't know what he said.
Besides, we're hurting.
Yeah. But in saying that though, I can think of a few comedians I've been to that have had that effect where I've had a sore face after, where you feel like you've had a gym workout in the cheeks.
Aye, yeah.
And then others where it's just mildly entertained.
Yeah, I think.
But it's preference.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the crowd. I've sort of found any sort of, whether it's a comedy show or whether it's a gig, whether it's the vibe of the crowd really is like 50% of it, if not more.
Yeah.
Like I've had a few gigs up here for bands that have been absolutely wick.
Aye.
But then, sad to say, but you go down south and see the same band and it's absolutely great.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's because you're more likely, maybe because it's more expensive down south, folks who are going to go see them are maybe, more likely to be fans. Like, because it's not too difficult to get anywhere for here, so maybe it's folks looking a day out more than anything.
I wonder sometimes if it's I don't know, based on being away and seeing some bands, whether or not there's a cultural thing, depending on where you are, that there's like certain crowds and certain things. People like, I don't know, there's some gig, like, well, I was gonna say maybe it's a genre thing. I don't think it is. Actually, maybe it is. So like, I remember going to see The Prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
I think The Prodigy is, I would say, probably a bit far removed from some of the other bands I've seen live.
Aye, yeah.
But yeah, the stories I heard, like honestly, there was a guy I worked with had said, he was like, oh, that I can't remember if he'd seen it or someone had told him, but to summarize the story was, he went in the Odyssey and there was these older guys and these younger guys, and for some reason this older guy decided to say to this one, apparently they never met each other, going, look at Steady. And I'm going, what do you mean? And going, look at Steady. Well, look at Steady. And next minute, apparently the young guy bit a part of his nose off.
Turned again to Voldemort?
Yeah, so I don't know if he was passing and he'd seen that someone had a medic. But he must have.
I must have either seen or heard enough.
Because that,
you couldn't stitch that story together.
Like his nose. But like that crowd, and when we were there as well, I don't know, he just sort of got more of the vibe that,
like, Prodigy, I never would have thought that kind of vibe, not from like the Prodigy.
I think the problem is that the Prodigy's got a bit of a crossover, so you'll get, to me, you'll get people that are, I don't know, you'll maybe get some people that are more sort of bordering somewhere maybe between rock and a bit of metal, and then you'll get it. There's the crossover of the chav.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're probably the ones that are more likely to do the nose biting, because I tend to find, you know what? I'm not going to generalize, because there are some chavs that are absolutely fine. Like, do you remember?
Oh, hi, yes,
Like Phil was at a few gigs with us, and it was comical because you're seeing everyone in black and leather or denim, and he's just standing there in tracksuit bombs watching Amon Amarth.
Yep.
I think he even bought like a flag. He was like standing with it, going, "It's surreal." But no, typically speaking, because for the most part, I would argue that a lot of rock and metal fans are more introverted people, unless they're on their own.
Yeah,
a lot of them don't have the confidence to go and be themselves around people that they're not comfortable around.
I sort of wonder, is it also, though, I don't want to say like a party vibe would encourage people to be more aggressive. I'm sort of wondering, is it because it's a big crowd, so you could just be a scumbag and then disappear into the fog almost of like this crowd of people?
That, and I think as well that there's people maybe are enhanced in certain ways.
Yes, shall we say, aren't in their right minds?
Yeah, and then
seeing things that aren't there.
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, even in terms of alcohol, we've all know people that probably shouldn't touch it. So you can only imagine the same thing applies to everything.
And there's some things which I would say you shouldn't touch. Well, I'd say a lot of things you probably shouldn't touch, because let's be honest, you don't know how it'll affect you until it affects you.
Well, that, and depending on your company as well,
Yeah.
Because like it's like the whole thing as well of, I don't know. I'm guessing there's a connection here from my brain. They've picked up on this connection, but the whole thing of people using the argument to say, they left the house with a knife for their own protection. Going, I don't buy that. I see that as you're looking an excuse to use that on someone.
I think it's a weird one because
I know what the connection was.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that people are probably know rightly they're going to get in a proper state, and they know potentially what they're capable of, but they're still doing it anyway.
Aye.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I think. No, because I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of folks that you'll meet up with them, they'll roll in, if you're in town or whatever, or you'll meet up with them before you actually go out, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, "I'm gonna get absolutely rode off." Their goal is to get as messed up as humanly possible, and
the worst part is them because you think to yourself, if I'm sober, I'm gonna have to like effectively treat them like a newborn.
That, to be honest, that's why I never really went out much. Like, up until maybe a few years ago, I wouldn't have went out to like bars or anything because I just knew that I'd be the babysitter, and if they if they kicked anything off, because I'm teetotal and I'm sober, I'm gonna have to try and de-escalate, which means I'm probably the one gonna get punched.
And you don't want to be effectively the human shield.
No, that's it. Especially you being the one who's sober, you're not the one who probably started anything.
Because chances are, I'll come next day anyway. They'll have no recollection, so they'll not realize what.
Yeah. You're the one who has to deal with the consequences of it.
You want to know? Oh, what happened? And meanwhile, you've got a black eye. Like, oh,
and then laugh it off and move on.
There's people. There's people. I learned the hard way from that. I'd be like, will not be in your company in that in that context again. There's people that are great for it, but then there's other people that you're just like, you're gonna turn this into an episode of Hollyoaks.
Just the drama's all gonna come out.
Everyone, can be bothered. There was people hung around with us from our school days, and looking back, there was a period of time I didn't really go out that much with a few of my mates. At that time, whenever I was working Friday night. I think it was Thursday night. No, it was Wednesday. Wednesday, Friday night, and then Saturday was like lunchtime, nighttime. So, and to be honest, for the most part, I remember, I don't know, for some reason, I think just through what my dad grew up with, obviously, with where our families came from, I don't know if it never left him, that there was always that notion of Belfast. He grew up at a time whenever it was dodgy. Like proper dodgy, compared to what it is now, it's nothing.
And I think there's also that component of being in an environment where people are drinking. When, again, based on where we grew up, there was a lot of connotations, might be the way to put it, that were around that environment, which you obviously wouldn't want your son to be getting wrapped up in. Really.
And I know, I still believe that he probably didn't. Well, he probably thought that there was still some inherent danger, and even though, like, I've never once been out that. Well, actually, I was gonna say I've never been ever out that one person's got left behind. I'll go into that story in a minute. And it wasn't my fault. But yeah, that's never happened. So I didn't really go out that much because of that, because it was always too much aggro. And he was like, you could tell he was always, and then he eventually just accepted, it's like, it'd be fine. Yeah, so I didn't really go out that much, but there was a guy we went to school with, and before I'd got back and sort of was in touch with him again, he'd sort of absolved himself from the group, but he'd, like, they went out, and if he didn't get any attention from girls, he was like
having a huff.
He just went off in a man huff, and he would have went out of his way to antagonize people, or would have got the attention of people.
One way or the other, I'm being the center of attention. Kind of thing.
And if people weren't there to step in, there would have been I'd heard there multiple times that they probably would have been ground into dust. And to be honest, like for the most part, I would be like, but to be honest, it would have been probably a good lesson learned. No harm to him because, well, he's got quite a few character flaws, but I'll not go into that. But yes, the story about someone getting left in town was actually Scurf.
Okay.
So that came, to be honest, that was an example. Now looking back, in hindsight, as bad as it sounds, like it was a few years ago. It was, you know, that thing in Belfast Meltdown.
Yes.
So I used to be called Ragnarok.
Yep.
And it was dirt cheap. Like I think you could get. I honestly think that like the drinks promotions, it was something stupid like 3 beers for £5 or something.
Aye.
And you're like,
that's dangerous.
Now, I would say it'd be pretty good with beer, but I don't know what happened, but we were out for a long time, and I actually remember for some reason stealing a traffic cone. It sounded like something of an episode of, well, by steal, I lifted it from a set and carried it from where that would have been up at Queen's down to
City Hall.
Would have carried it down near M Club because we got it. You know the way there was a chippy down there, and I think it was was it the Cavalier, or was it? It was it was a wee chippy in it, like sitting in booths like Beatties.
Yes.
On the
Oh yeah.
I can't remember what it was called.
Oh, was it like Longshaws or something like that?
I can't remember the name, but it was just down from. Oh, what did you call everyone? It was like Gracie's or something. It was some. Anyway, we went in, and there was me, and there was Scurf, and there was Gary, and there was Dolly. So we went to get food up like a tray at the end of the night. So I think Scurf was the first one to get up served. And I forget it was me after, and then Gary and Dolly. So Scurf got his and he went past me. And I went and I got mine. And I went and I stood outside and I was wondering, I thought everyone was still getting sorted. So I stood outside waiting on them. And Gary and Dolly come out and I go, where's Scurf? And Scurf's like, Gary was like, oh, he's away home. I went, what? And he goes, I've just booked us a taxi because he's away. I'm going, is he? And like we went down and I went, and he goes, right, that's our taxi now. And the taxi pulls up and I'm like, still has. I'm like,
you're just like something
like,
quite
no. Right. When did he go? Like, how did he get home? He go, no, he told us he's away. I'm like, right. So I got in the car, and bear in mind that Dolly had also agreed with Gary, yes, he's away.
And so you were two against one. You were thinking maybe I didn't remember, or maybe I wasn't paying attention.
I was just like, I know I drank quite a few beers, so I was like, just accepting at face value.
It's 2 against 1.
And well, there's 2 people have told me, okay. But then in the car, as we're coming on the motorway, Dolly goes, I'm going to phone Scurf and see where he is.
Oh, no.
and he goes, hey, Scurf, where are you? You're still in the chippy? Oh, all right, we're in the taxi. All right, okay, see you later. I'm still in the chippy. Why did you tell me he went home? And I remember feeling really bad because out of all, well, I wouldn't leave anyone in the town by themselves, but of all the people, like Scurf's one of my best friends. So, but thankfully got sorted. But it sort of worked out for it might have, I think it worked out for the better, but it could have potentially maybe been worse. But about 5 minutes after I got home, whatever I ate left my body fairly quick. So, but then again, it probably would have just happened in Belfast instead of the house.
Well, it could have been worse. It could have been in a taxi.
Yep. Well, to be fair, I do remember one time coming back from town, and I don't know if it was the guy was driving quick or again I was young, but I remember that moment when you feel it rise, and you go to stop it, and you go, "I've got this. I've got this. I'll just regretfully swallow." But then when this happened, there was too much. So all I could do was effectively, and I was with Phil, who you haven't met, who's in the chat. And whenever Phil's drunk, all he does really is he can just talk away, and he usually it's about food. But
so this is the last time that you want to be hearing about food is
well, strangely, while this was in my mouth, I felt better aside from having to hold it. But he was just sitting now this happened when we were going over the motorway, and I remember in my mind going, I need to spit this out. And I actually did look at the car door, and a thought crossed my mind going, if you open the door quickly, just let it out. But then I thought to myself, well, even in that state of mind, I'm going, this guy's doing at least 70 over the motorway. There's a chance if I open the car door, it'll fly back, hit me in the face, there'll be an explosion of vomit and blood all over the back of the taxi, and I don't fancy cleaning that or paying for it. So all I could do was sit in the darkness when Phil talked and just nod at him and not say anything. And the fact that he didn't question why I was so quiet until we got bear in mind this coming off the motorway, and it was passing the tech down at White Abbey.
Yep.
And he lived up at beside Court Corner at the time.
Aye.
So it was still a good drive.
Yeah.
But he was like getting there going, right, I'll see you later. You were a bit quiet there tonight. And he just opened the car door and spat in the street going, that's me. But yeah, that was the only time that I've had a close call. And actually,
taxi.
Yeah, that's the closest. That's the only close time I've had in the taxi. I know. Just realizing, never mentioned stories before.
You saying about you actually mentioned about ordering food reminded me of the story when we were going down to Dublin. I can't remember what band we were going to see. I think it was
with. Oh, it was you, me, and Dickie.
Yeah, and yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was a good story.
And we went into Mickey D's.
Yeah, that was funnier than what it should have been.
Oh yeah, because you were in stitches. I was more confused than anything. To be honest,
I was just staring at the guy and just like chewing at my food and just staring at him, and he's looking everywhere, wondering why.
Like some cruel joke being played on him.
I should probably explain that, shouldn't I?
Yeah, work away.
So I going in McDonald's down in Dublin, and going into those
the new Argos screens.
The Argos
Argos fast food.
So going in and going, I'll have a buffalo chicken wrap. Yes, scan the card. Some weird shit happened that it didn't seem like the order went through. One, right? I can't remember if it came up an error code or it just like didn't give me any order number or anything.
I think it didn't print out a receipt or anything like that.
No.
I remember I was just like, oh, I got my receipt.
It was something. I remember it being really weird. I think it did flash up the order number, but it cleaned off the screen, and it was just like, what's going on? So, thinking that my order had went through because I didn't get a result, did it again, and then realizing I had ordered the same thing twice, but I don't know why we found it so funny, but I think it was just the chaos of it all.
I think it was the panic. I think it was starting with like your confusion, like panic of did it charge me twice? Has it ordered anything at all?
Where's my food?
Yeah,
and
I think Dickie might have driven down.
He did,
but it'd been a lot. Like I don't think we had gotten much to eat that day, so we were starving.
That was essential at that point, and just finally. What was it? I think actually the second order did come out first.
It did, yeah.
And then sitting down, and the next minute, like the guy coming out.
Yeah, because I remember we were chatting about it, and we were just like, "Oh, it mustn't have went through."
Yeah,
like
so. Like, say was what? The second one was 55. So the first one was 54. Or, and sitting down eating number 55. Guy coming out, calling out the number like fast food Argos, number 54. And me realizing that's my number and just staring him in this direction and just eating the second order. And he's looking around going, number 54. And no one coming forward to get it. And everyone sort of just looking around at each other like, oh, who number 54 is. And I'm sat there just staring there going, you bastards in your system. And Dickie found it funny, remember that?
Yeah.
I'm going, this has been the most expensive wrap I've ever paid. 20 quid or something for like a buffalo wrap. Although that one was good, but
we got a wee comedy sketch along with it, so it worked out.
It's just the guy didn't see me staring at him, but if that had been caught on camera, I probably would have been taken to some like potential psychopath,
seductively looking over this other like order being flipped.
Yeah, I know. Just wink at him while he's calling it number 54. You know what was funny as well that night? I don't know if you remember this. When we went into that bar.
Oh,
beside,
yes. I was just up the street from the venue because, like, who was we were seeing that night?
It was Tesseract.
That's right. Yes,
and they were supported by Between the Buried and Me, and
was it like Toxic Rain or something like that?
I can't remember who the third one was.
I think they were like I think they were from like Moldova.
It was Pliny.
Pliny, okay.
They wouldn't actually. I don't think we actually got seeing them because of the way things fell timing wise when we were getting in.
Yeah,
I think we saw like the end of the set, but I was more wanting to see Between the Buried and Me because I've never seen them to be honest. I would like to see them doing a full set because they're one of those bands that like they're shortest songs 6 or 7 minutes long. The majority of their songs are like 12 minutes long or something.
You want to get a proper experience with the songs.
So if you get like a warm up set, there's a chance
one maybe 2 songs.
We're on an hour. 3 songs. But that bar we went into, obviously Dickie was driving, so he wasn't drinking. So but he'd asked as I went in, he's like, "So what do you want to drink?" And I'd seen that I had on top a beer called Fox's Rock. And I was like, yes, because I've had before and I like it. I can't remember what part of Ireland it's from, but it's a nice beer.
Yeah.
And I went, Fox's Rock. So Dickie got your drink and he went up and he said to the bartender and he turns around and hands me like a glass of clear liquid. And I'm like, what's this? And he goes, vodka on the rocks. I'm like, no, I said Fox's Rock, not vodka on the rocks. And I went, all right. And I went, it's all right. I'll salvage it. I'll get something. So that was funny. But I went up to the barman. I don't know if there was like a bit of Asperger's about him because I went up and I went, can I have a Coke, please? And he goes, what? Like, can I have some Coke, please? Coca-Cola? Yeah. He goes, oh no, that's okay because we don't have that other kind. It's like, what kind of bar is this? I was just dropping in.
Clearly not that kind of bar.
I was just, do you happen to have any Class A drugs on you?
Oh, you know. Devil's Dandruff.
To be fair though, I was on a stag in Edinburgh and I found this really weird that there was one of the guys was asking people in Brewdog going, it's a bit weird. That's one way to get lifted.
Oh, yeah. I wonder though if folks in the mainland it's a lot more like casual.
Whereas over here it's just like,
because I remember we were in Bloodstock and like it must have been the Friday morning because the first night I think we just got our tent set up. I ended up just climbing out because I heard the bin joisting happen. It's like, oh, it's happening.
Yeah.
I think you probably just saw my feet kicking out of the tent.
I think you did. I think you didn't even pull up the zip. I think you just managed to
I think I was just so excited about going to the festival, but then so it was the next morning. I think we barely got out of the tent before the folks across from us ended up offering us, "Oh, do you want like speed? Do you want like?"
There was the guy Carl.
He's a lovely fellow, like.
I know they're all like nice guys, but
bit of a culture shock, like just like first thing in the morning, someone's offering you like Class A drugs, like.
I smack ketamine and pop.
That was stressed. That was a stretched joke.
I know. You know what? I actually had a better one, but I completely lost it within a second. But yeah. Nice guys, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe there's I don't know. I think it's a culture thing. I don't know.
But it could also that could be their sort of party vibe. Like I think over here it's very much just alcohol binge drinking, but maybe over there it's a bit of a different vibe. I don't know.
I mean, like I remember, but and saying that, the one thing I will say is that you don't really. It's expected that it happens at a festival. Because it among thousands of people, yes.
But
like,
there was never any pressure.
No.
Like if I was saying I'm not drinking, there was no there was no bother with it, you know.
The only time I ever had anyone at that festival pressure me into drinking a beer was whenever there was people found out it was my stag, and there was a guy handing me a beer. I went, no, I didn't want to be taking this drink supply. He goes, I'd be offended if you didn't. I went, okay, well, I'd be like. Well, he said it primarily because it was like, oh, it's your stag. Here's a drink for you.
I think it's less.
It'd be like throw like a slap in the face. I don't want your drink.
Yeah, I refuse your drink.
Yeah,
but I think it's less about why are you not drinking and please accept this gift.
Aye.
It's more a genuine like charitable thing rather than get this down here.
Do you remember the Polish guy I befriended?
Yes,
you were there beside me.
I was
Michał, wasn't it?
Michał, yeah, and he had one of those trolley things, and it was filled with beer.
I'd like to know how the hell he got a trolley to there.
Fartback. But then again, like we have to fly, but if the folks are on the mainland, they just can get a train or get a taxi up.
But imagine, but even at that, because like you've seen the walk around wasn't that bad now compared to download. Download was way worse.
But that day I remember was blistering hot.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Like it was, and it was. There's obviously no shade because you're talking must be at least a mile long that line. Like
yeah, it's. Do you remember? I lost my bag. I remember during that
because we were and people were getting the tent set up. And again, I think we were all warm, tired, frustrated,
and then I caught on the bag was gone,
and you just disappeared. So I was running down trying to find you.
But it's testament to what the people at the festival like. If someone's seen it, and rather than rather
than kick it or do,
or like shitting in it or something random, the handed it in, and I'm just glad though that Carl had put his hoodie in that because I remembered, the hoodie that he put in it, and I put in the top. So the moment I said that. They knew straight away that was mine.
Yeah, good identifier. I mean, if it's something generic black backpack or whatever.
I know. You imagine like saying, "What's inside your bag? Black clothing at a metal festival." It's just like, oh no shit. But yeah, the very first time I went to Bloodstock, and I think that's why there's part of me would like to go back at some point with better weather for you because even though like you probably still had memorable things, I think it put a little dampener on things. That was to me that weather was worse than. Well, I don't know. I was gonna say
wasn't worse than Download.
Download was worse.
We had worse facilities at Bloodstock purely by nature of the tent turning into a swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as actual weather, I don't think it was worse.
No, it was colder on the Saturday night, but in terms of walking around, Download was an actual chore. I think
it just because like you literally couldn't feel your legs. Like from the waist down, you couldn't feel anything because you're literally like digging through a bog.
You're either pulling your feet out of the ground or trying not to slip.
Aye.
It was like one extreme to the other. It was either being stuck to the ground or sliding along the ground.
Yeah, I think actually as a result of that, they've moved it to like the tarmac.
Aye.
Like, and I mean, fair enough. It's getting a balance of like being in a field, that kind of vibe. But flip's sake, you need solid ground to walk on.
I'd be honest, like even though like there was one year we went to Bloodstock and after I think I don't know if I was lying on a hard bit of ground during the night, but I remember like my shoulder was killing me for like a few days after, and I don't know if it was from that or if I did something stupid maybe lying on a certain angle. But speaking of like people and like weird substances. I remember I remember this all happened within the space of like 20 minutes. And the very first time we went, and we were like, "What is this?" We were walking down the path, and it's weird because like whenever we went, obviously we landed. It was daytime, and it was like maybe dinner time, maybe. Yeah. But whenever we arrived this time with the flight time, I think we arrived. It was starting to turn dark, so I think it was like maybe sometime in between 9 and 10. But we're walking down the path and all taxis were dropping off here. So this was back before we had our plans of we would have done things, going to Litchfield and buying a load of alcohol cheap and getting a taxi or
you didn't have a battle plan really for
So we just got dropped off at the festival and just walked in. And this guy in it was weird, a pink fluffy cowboy hat just walking up alongside going, any of you guys got any Class A drugs? No. You plan to take any Class A drugs? No. Have a good one. And just walked on.
That sounds like an undercover policeman right there.
I know, either he's like the most like flamboyant sting operation ever, or like I need some drug buddies. And then there was another one, like literally we just got in. There's one story I would love to tell, but I don't know if it's suitable for us because it's a bit NSFW to be fair.
Flip, okay. Well,
so I'll maybe tell you that one another time, but it was hilarious.
We'll take that offline.
Yeah. But yeah, we got directed into the campsite. Obviously, this was nighttime, but it turned out at the time, maybe me telling you this part, you might remember. I may have told you before. If not, then I will tell you. About I was being accidentally misdirected to the press and the disabled camp.
I think briefly I remember. I think this might have been. I think if I remember right, you told me this story the night that I agreed that I was going to Bloodstock, but I don't remember the actual story. So like, I just remember you telling me something about it.
Yeah, it's funny, I think, but again, in bad taste.
Oh dear.
But we got the tent set up, and we were going to explore for the first time, never been into it and all that. And we're walking past the burger stand, and we turned and looked to the left, and this guy's just drinking mustard. And we were sort of like just stopped and looked at him, and he like looked at us, and he just went, "Oh, sorry guys, I had a bad pill, I needed to wash it down."
Oh,
so mustard was your choice.
Like, what happened? What did it do to your taste buds? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, English mustard's like, it's like eating horseradish.
Yeah, you may as well just drink vinegar.
So I don't know. I wouldn't fancy cleaning out his cage the next day. Or the Portaloo. But yeah, that was. I'll be honest. I could probably alone sit and read for like the way I documented every year.
Yeah,
funny things that happened.
Yeah,
that, and I know for a fact if I read them, it'll all come flooding back.
Yes. I think you just need that little like nugget.
Yeah.
To like let all the memories come flooding back.
There's some will always stick with me. And unfortunately, the one downside I think is whenever people forget them.
Yes.
Because you'll maybe try and remember people, and you can tell by the look in their face, like, and you're like, if you could remember this, you would probably really enjoy this much more.
Yeah.
But then again, I would worry as well. Sometimes I don't know, but was it Mandela effect?
Yes.
Or
everyone remembers
your recollections is
it's a collective acceptance of, I don't know what the proper terminology of it is, but basically like everyone remembers something that didn't actually happen.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Or does that still count under remembering it, not how it happened?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like I think it's. Yeah, I think if everyone has the same story, basically, but that's not.
It's recounted differently.
Yeah.
Why is it called? I actually want to know. Like, was there a philosopher or a neuroscientist called Mandela, or was it named after Nelson Mandela? I don't know.
I know that the Mandela is like that. There's like an image that's like a flower, like the lotus flower sort of thing,
and it changes, like.
Yeah, like so. I'm wondering if it's like, because I was trying to work out why that happens, and the only thing I can think is because we all know what like the way a normal story goes. Maybe it's just like we all fill in the gaps the same way to make the story match up, if that makes sense. But a very loose theory. And just I'm pulling it out of my backside at the minute. But yeah, it's a very strange phenomenon because it seems to happen like just with movies and all sorts. Like people imagine certain lines.
I don't remember this part.
Yeah.
Was this always in this? What's the other one? Oh, some of the theories are interesting, but I hate whenever I get those days whenever I can recount random facts, and I'm just like, I have no idea why my part of my brain's just regurgitate that. And then there's other days where there's things you're like, why did I not remember this?
Yeah.
But that theory about the term was effectively like people look for connections when there's none there, and that is how conspiracy theories come about.
Yes.
I can't remember what it's called. It's like confirmation. Is it confirmation bias?
There's confirmation bias. There's also the idea of correlation versus causation.
I like people believe that man, he smoked 60 a day and he died in a car crash. Cigarettes cause car crashes.
Yeah.
Because
I think it was like it must have been when I was looking to do, basically trying to work out what to do at uni, and like it must have been like for statistics or accounting or something, and they were given an example of that. It was, the amount of something really like random and stupid, but on the chart it looked like it mapped pretty well.
But turns out it's just
it was something like, I mean, they did something completely out of left field to make the point. It was something like, the amount of pirate ships and like some other random nonsense. Literally, like you couldn't find a connection at all, but because they just laid these two things that actually do like line up, someone could try and like weave a connection.
And then that's how conspiracy theory about pirate ships is born.
Yeah, but then again, like some conspiracy theories, like what is it? Like real life is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we maybe talked about it before, but the case where the American government or the American military were trying to train dolphins.
Yeah.
To like speak. I think it was to like to sniff out mines and stuff like that. Basically, wanting to turn them into dogs for Navy SEALs or whatever. So that like
Navy SEALs. Fit them with machine guns,
Aye. Or like Sonic Boom thing when they clap, just like boom. As them setting the detonator down. But like the flooded like at this house had this woman teaching it, and it ended up as it reached maturity. Obviously, the dolphin had other things on its mind, and so they're trying to alleviate that. But then they ended up like, long story short, ended up like giving the dolphin LSD trips with the person trying to teach them and all this crazy nonsense. And it's like, I think eventually it got shut down, obviously, but the fact that that was a real life thing that someone got like government funding to do.
Yeah.
What do you do for a living? Oh, I give dolphins LSD.
I feed hallucinogenics to mammals. You see, it's just rolling about this in a psychedelic, one of them like tie-dye psychedelic shirts with long hair. Yeah. That's quite an image. But there's a few operations you hear about the CIA and stuff involved with, and you're like, this was an actual, like there was an actual period in the 70s when the war actually investing and believing that there was a possibility that telepaths and like telekinesis existed, and that like they were going to unlock potential. And apparently, like based on the declassified documents, they're like saying that there was one. They were like saying, "Oh, there was one candidate that showed promise." Maybe, although more likely it was a case of shit. We've got nothing to show for this budget. Well, he guessed what we were going to have up for lunch. So how did he know?
We need some funding here, like we need some results.
Yeah. The elusive lunch guesser. But a lot of people then put that down to the belief that the way during the Cold War that America and Russia were just fucking with each other, so they maybe leaking information.
Like, I mean, the whole thing that happened. Like anytime there's war, there's always these crazy bits of misinformation,
subversion.
Yeah, like I never find out the whole reason that we talk about carrots giving you good eyesight.
Is it because the Bugs Bunny? And the Bugs Bunny was parodying a movie star at that time. Can't remember who it was, but he was in a role where he was like leaning.
No, not even. This was like might have been the First World War, and it was whenever the British had their new radar systems. I think it might have been radar systems or some new type of like way of basically finding stuff in the dark, and they didn't want I think it was the Germans knowing that they had this technology, so they basically like fed this information that they were like feeding their soldiers carrots because that improved their eyesight so they could see this stuff. And I might be misconnecting a few bits and pieces there, but that's the broad story of it, where it's just like, yeah, we have this technology. Let's just say we're feeding our fellows carrots here instead. And that just carried throughout the rest of everyone's childhood, really.
The biggest lie that influenced our diet.
Yeah.
Sure. Although my favorite that I've heard of was the one, and I think I've told you this before. I don't know if I did. Apparently I think it was during the Second World War, that, and this may be true, apparently, and it's just hilarious, was that apparently Americans would have dropped, they dropped crates full of condoms into Russia that were American brand. Now you go, oh, very nice. But what they were doing was they were putting extra large condoms inside medium ones
to try and like emasculate
pretty much like emasculate Russians to be like, oh, Yankee, oh yeah, Yankee have third leg. I don't know what accent that was, but oh, Yankee, massive Yankee. So I just thought
that would the problem is that wouldn't surprise me, and that's where the conspiracy theories kick off. Because again, truth is stranger than fiction. Like, oh, it's brilliant. Like, I think I remember hearing as well that they had to change the name of the underwear for some like astronauts from small, medium, large to like large, super massive, and humongous or something like that. Just to avoid, I don't know what type of clothing it was, but basically, there's no small. You're fine. Don't worry.
Now you saying that, I was trying to think of some funny names to parody well-known astronauts, but unfortunately I can only think of 3 astronauts and none have any dick jokes in them. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd be really stressing and trying to work Yuri Gagarin into one. I'll not be rushing to bring that up again.
Yeah, there's a whole SpaceX thing now coming on, but I haven't heard much of it recently.
Was I not sure? Did one of those rockets not explode?
Did, yeah. And the good thing, I suppose, is the fact that with the way Musk is doing things is that they're unmanned.
Yeah.
Like, sounds silly, but it goes up, it blows up. Oh, boo-hoo, he's out a couple of million.
Whereas you haven't blown up a few people.
Exactly. Like, obviously, human lives are more valuable than some floppity jillionaires pocket change.
I do find it weird that there seems to be now, sometimes when you read online, there seems to be a growing precedent. And I do love animals, but there seems to be a weird growing precedent. There's a lot of people who seem to automatically have this real nihilistic, misanthropic outlook that animals are more important than people. I find that very jarring and weird.
Yeah, they'd be more willing to send a person up than they would be to send a monkey up, for example.
But like, even as an example, like seeing like story, I could see both sides, but just the way people approach it, like when you read in comments. So there was like a story of like a woman saying that she's living beside a neighbor and her dog, the neighbor, I can't remember if she moved in and they had a dog, and since they moved in, the dog constantly barked, or whether or not she moved in and the neighbor got a dog and it constantly barked. But there was the lack of empathy in the comments, and pretty much like saying, well, you should just move and all that. And going, you don't know that person's situation. That may be like all they can afford to live in. What?
Also, it's not their fault that. Again, to the point that it's not the dog's fault either.
Yeah,
it's the owner's fault. They should be either bringing it inside or finding a way to like. Because obviously the dog is anxious.
Yeah,
to the point where it's barking all the
so
time.
they need to address the dog's issues. Yeah. I agree. It's more the owner's issues. It's the same as with kids. Unfortunately, and we've all went to school with one. You can tell the ones that
get away with murder.
The parents did nothing because they're just little bastards.
They were raised by the streets.
Yeah,
literally. Here's a packet of crisps and a tin of Coke. Out you go.
Or that old classic saying of "Go play with the bosses."
Aye.
And I always was wanting to know what that saying. What you want me to get hit by a bus?
You want me to like play chicken with the bus because I think it'll win.
Or what, you want me to be conductor, driver? What's the goal here? But yeah, no, the whole thing. Unfortunately, I think I'd say there's a likelihood. I could be wrong, but I just feel like the people that had parents that actually give a shit and give a hands-on approach probably had a bit more direction and did more with their lives than the ones that didn't.
Okay, I mean, there is going to be a correlation on parenting and result, I suppose, or output. Don't know the right terminology there, which is a sad reality. Like, and again, it's tricky to turn that round to a degree. I think, though, when you get to a certain age, and if you recognize the fact, it's not that it's easy, but you have the ability to then sort of like level off the curve, if that makes sense.
Do you mean in the sense that people realize, okay, I'm fucking around here. I need to grow up.
Yeah, just like, okay, I've gotten away doing X, Y, and Z, but that hasn't gotten me very far.
Aye.
So okay, if I start at least doing like do like this one and this one, okay, I'll keep those up, but I'll not do this one.
There's the people that, there's the people that never get wise to it, and they just perpetuate the cycle, and then they're like, oh, why is my life like this? Going, but then there's other people that like they pick up, they go, I was a bit mad. I need to actually
level myself off. Yeah.
And for better, well, you like to think for better, although I don't know. As long as you don't completely rid yourself of any personality and all that in the process.
Yeah, you don't want to become like a robot, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But again, I sort of think, like, I know folks who are very like straight-laced, who are full of personality, and then you also know folks who are absolute nutcases, who are dry as anything.
There's people that I don't get the people that the only time you'll see any inkling of, well, all they've got to define them is that whenever they get drunk, they can start a conversation, but besides that, nothing's going for them.
Yeah.
If you need that.
But I wonder, I'm wary to think of it like biologically, but I wonder if that's a chemical imbalance type of thing, where
like certain things being released that
but that's not to excuse using alcohol as a crutch.
Aye.
But it's maybe, if that is the case for yourself, having a chat with someone to like, okay, maybe there is something there. Maybe they can give me something that will give the same effect without ruining my kidney or liver and having an addiction.
And needing to eat a kebab.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and spending, goodness knows, being able to do it during the middle of the day rather than 2 in the morning.
I don't know, you would. I think that's maybe why you get. I know some people that if they're there's a few mates, like I would say, probably applies to Steve, that he would just, like, if we're going to play Xbox or something, he would stick some coffee on.
Yeah.
But say you probably just naturally find, like, I think I'm coming around to coffee a bit. I don't
Join us.
No, the dark side.
The dark roast side.
But like I thought, because Scurf would drink coffee and Carl come to try what he was drinking, then he gave me, and he was like, argh. So I'm like, okay then. So I must be acclimatizing to the heavy duty stuff. But that caramel, I think it was the vanilla stuff, sort of took away the nastiness of black. I know, and given time, it could be, I like my coffee like my metal. But I
think it depends on the coffee, like, because
the brand.
Yeah, like, cause I'm sure I'll get some hate here, but I can't drink Starbucks coffee. So just very, very bitter to me. But then again, I would drink a coffee black, or maybe drink it like a flat white or something, maybe, if I was treating myself.
What's the difference? Like in a flat white, is that got milk in it?
Yeah, I mean, it's someone back in the day, whenever I was like full on hipster, I could have told you the difference. But it's basically like a middle ground between like a cappuccino and latte. One of them is like heated and one's very frothy. So there's that sort of middle ground.
Cappuccino is more the frothy one, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And latte is more milky with a little bit of froth. Either way
I like those frappuccinos.
Yeah, that's the thing, because they're quite nice. There's a bit of sweetness to them.
Yeah.
They are. Like, I remember trying a mocha, which is like hot chocolate coffee.
Mochaccino.
Yeah, but like, again, as I said before, that it still was disappointing to me, because I'm still expecting like melted chocolate and a coffee.
Yeah. I know, it's just like,
I thought you could save this for me, coffee. What the hell?
I'm actually trying to think of things that I saw growing up that, like, I was completely in disillusion with whenever I got to try them. You know, it's one that was for a period of time? Pizza.
Right, okay.
I don't know why. I remember I grew up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
And they were, that's all you seen them eat was pizza. And I was like, that must be the best tasting thing ever because the turtles love it.
That's it.
And then, yeah, I remember, I think like the first time trying pizza, I don't know if it was just, I didn't like it as much. It tasted different from what I expected or what, or it was just all right. Or the pizza I had was just,
It probably depended where you get it as well. Like,
I don't know where this was from, but I remember it was, I think it was, if memory serves me, it probably would have been, I remember went to my granny and granny's when our family lived in the Shackle. And I think my dad ordered one night that our Uncle Annette was up, so it might have been from some takeaway or some chippy or whatever. Like in the 90s, early 90s up there, I imagine they had been few and far between.
I'm like, as a kid, I'm walking down the road trying to think where there would be a pizza place. It's Chippies as far as the eye can see. Maybe the odd like Chinese here and there.
Like where they lived would have been, I don't know if you know an area called Hazelfield Street, but that's roughly where it was.
Give me a landmark, give me a pub or give me a pub or a church.
It would have been like, we've been talking maybe, I'd say about 5 to 10 minutes walk from, have you heard Vienberg Primary?
Yes, yeah.
It was roughly about there.
So that would have been up near where the garage used to be. Am I in the right area?
Yeah, so if you came...
Sort of like, maybe like 100 yards up from the library.
You know actually where I've been closer to? You know where the Chippy Beatties is?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You know the way there was the bank facing it?
Yep.
If you went behind it...
Oh, okay, so like in the middle of the estate?
It was roughly about... There was like a wee corner shop.
Mm-hmm.
Once, if you went down that side street of the bank, and I think you took the right, and if you kept going straight, you would have came to a T-junction. There was a wee corner shop there, but if you took a turn to the left before that, T-junction was there.
Yeah.
But I don't know where it would have been from, but
because again, I don't even know if Chinese takeaways would have been that popular in the 90s. To be honest,
I don't think
it would have been Chippies and.
I see. Speaking of that, I seen a real funny contentious one online about.
Oh, I think
was it the whole thing again? Lad Bible trying to get their clicks in, being decisive about the whole thing of where they'll not elaborate on what the article's about. So please click our link. Where it's like Americans
find out.
Yeah. Americans. It was like I think they actually used the adjective Americans horrified at British Chinese. And going,
yeah. Also, that's a racist title because they're just making it imply that people are being racist, but it's just the way we refer to Chinese food. Let's be honest, it's not Chinese food; it's
Asian cuisine.
Yeah,
I don't know what it was that they were shocked about, and I would say probably even like what Chinese restaurants over here give is maybe different from other parts of the UK, for all you know.
The Belfast chicken curry is a thing.
Mm.
Because I remember whenever I was in Portland, there was an Irish pub, but on the menu they had Belfast chicken curry. I wasn't there. I literally think I was just walking by and saw it and was like, what the heck is this? But I would never insult myself enough to buy something that's meant to be from here. There's in Portland of all places.
I know there's part of me would be really curious to know what that would taste like.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the comments, it's hilarious because it's amazing how many Americans have this conception of what constitutes British food.
Aye.
And our diet would be different from England and Scotland and Wales, I'd say. I know there'd be some similarities, but I honestly believe that Americans believe that we're all still living on rations. Ration meals from the Second World War.
Yeah, and again, I think this is an exaggeration, but up until maybe the last sort of decade or so, there were folks who still would have believed you're in flipping whitewashed cottages and stuff.
Oh, I did. It's I think it's I don't know whether or not to be annoyed or pity their lack of understanding of the world, but the whole thing of people taking it. There was the amount that was saying I wouldn't rate the cuisine of a country that that serves up beans on toast, and you do realize that's a snack and not like constituting like a national dish. You've got macaroni and cheese.
Yes, like Also, let's be honest. You're tired. You just need something to eat.
It's comfort food. It's
exactly
not...
bread, big thick slab of butter, and just some beans on there. Just tastes good.
Like for example, like the King of England is but Prince Charles coming out. What we're going to cook him? Beans on toast.
Yeah. It's not exact. We're not ordering that in flipping restaurants.
To me, like there's a difference. There's cuisine and cooking.
Yeah.
Cooking is like
food in belly. Move on with the day.
You make a pot of soup or something. Cuisine is like, oh, I've got fennel on a bed of pigeon arse and with onion teat gravy. It's just like something that sounds really eccentric, but it's probably lovely.
It's that gourmet Michelin star kind of thing, which is it's more art than food, I would argue.
Yeah, it's probably the best way can sum it up is it's probably the bridge between
like a sculpture and a meal.
It's like a tier up from your cooking, but it's not quite obviously the Michelin standard where you're like, oh, this is a roast beef, but it's been cooked in liquid nitrogen for 15 hours.
There was your man in England who was like in maybe early 2000s, really like obscure, random, like basically like science using
like man has some Blumenthal.
Yes, and he had like again because just using liquid nitrogen, he cooked stuff in liquid nitrogen and had like jelly with all this weird nonsense in it, and he was basically like a real life Willy Wonka.
The best way you can sum it up was it seemed like a mad scientist that went, I'm gonna cook a meal here.
Yeah.
But it always, I think they are quite expensive. I think you're talking like 200, 250 for a meal. But to be fair, if it's a good experience and it's like something you've never had before, but
I think that's the thing. If you're going there to treat it like entertainment, I think fair dues. Like if you're a big foodie or you're big into that sort of thing, then it's gonna be a bucket list sort of thing for you.
I think if you're open minded and you've got an open minded palate, like because you've seen ones where literally, like for example, you get a seafood dish and you have to wear headphones with the sounds of the ocean and all that, and you're like, I suppose it's
symbolic or whatever.
I know, like it's meant to like trick your brain into like creating a scene or like placing you somewhere. Some people go, it's pretentious as fuck. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's certain senses in conjunction probably can enhance things, but yeah, I think it would take you to know, like everyone has things. I think that regardless of what you're open to trying, like I would say there's even chefs. Like my mate Lee, that's a chef. I know for a fact he said he doesn't like ginger. I don't mean people. Ed Sheeran, bastard.
Well, Disney doesn't like gingers these days, anyway.
That's true. I know there's no room for gingers anymore. You're down now, and we're killing you off from our films. Yeah. Oh god, that's a touchy one. But yeah, he doesn't like. But whereas I can get, because ginger's quite a very strong.
It's very like synonymous with like cinnamon.
It's very strong,
almost burny sort of feeling to it.
I like it, but it is. It's the same as like Maggie wouldn't eat anything if I put coriander in it.
Right. Okay.
The beef or coriander is pretty strong. Same as mint. It's
you're gonna notice it.
Oh, it's like their presence in the meal.
Well, yeah,
they're not understated.
Yeah, like those flavors are the center of attention.
Yeah,
in the meal, as you say.
It's the same as like the one that really tricks my mind is cucumber.
I was gonna bring it up. I don't know. Cucumber is just like something out of a horror movie. All it needs to do is just like drift over a meal, and it's
been there.
Yeah,
and it effectively just tastes like water. But if someone said
solid water.
But if someone said, "Yeah, what does water taste like?" Like,
it's not cucumber, but like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I definitely don't like it.
don't get me wrong. Like if I was eating something, it was in the minute and I ate it, I wouldn't be like going, oh. But I know for a fact that it would
be like
it'd put me off the other elements.
Yeah.
It's like I know apparently like Carl would need a burger with cheese because he thinks that cheese is too overpowering. Whereas I don't know. I think it for now for a period of time I did think it was. I was like I was conflicted, but now no, I'm like no.
I think
they go well together.
I think it's one of those things that I think with food especially, it's about expectation. In that it doesn't matter what you could love the two things. Say you could love like cinnamon and like soy sauce, but if someone gave you a spoon of something and said this is cinnamon, but it was actually soy sauce, don't care whether you love those two things. You're gonna freak out because there's an expectation in your brain.
Preconceived notions ruin things, and that's why the amount of times, like films or music, I've heard one song from an artist. I went, oh, I like that, and then you go listen to an album, and the rest of the album sounds nothing like it.
And it's like, oh, there's a reason why that's the only song that I've heard from them before.
I know you're going like, is it just by sheer luck that I found this one? I like this one, or has hearing that song before heard the others?
Put you up here when no offense to them, but maybe like a lot of them is there.
It's ruined the rest of the maybe fun, because like I don't know if it's a controversial opinion, but I think people could put an album or an artist on shuffle. I think putting an album on shuffle is bad because
I think for the first listen, at the very least for the first listen, you should go through it. But again, it depends on how you're listening to music. I think you and me, more so you to be fair, would be very much let's sit down and listen to the album. And so it's the progression, why they again
put them in that order.
Yeah, again, it's almost like a musical sculpture almost. Why they put these blocks in this order. But a lot of folks, it's very much that sort of radio type of listening. So shuffle mixes things up a bit.
Well, sure, that's the whole thing about now that they're saying that this is why now pop songs being written are like, I don't think they're any more. They aim for not to be any longer than it was at like 3 minutes 15 or 3:30 or something like that. But something really short because everyone's got the attention of a gnat now, so there's just and that's what they put down to. Sure, it's been well known for years. If you look up reviews, critic reviews for music are hilarious because, like anything, it's all who was it? There was someone famously turned around and says a music critic is just a failed musician. I can't remember who it was. Someone was like, yeah, pretty much. Chances are they probably fancied themselves and they thought, oh, I've got no talent whatsoever, so I'll just criticize everyone else. Whereas, like, I don't know. To me, I think it's easy if you know nothing about music to criticize it.
Yeah.
Films, I think it's harder to turn around and go, that's, that film's terrible. But, to me, like, I would say, like, if someone sat and thought about, could I have came up with an idea like that? Could I have decided I was going to do that camera angle?
Yeah.
Could it,
But I think
decide on things like that?
I think to your point though, for that reason, having a movie critic is more valuable. Or put it this way, you can have a career as a movie critic more so than as a music critic.
Yeah.
Because I think it's maybe this aspect of how many decisions are made and how many moving parts there are.
Mm-hmm.
You only really need one person at minimum for music to be created, whilst you can't really do that with a movie.
No.
At the bare minimum for a short movie,
like an independent,
you're talking maybe 10 to 12 people, and there's a lot of decisions that are made for like 1 30-second scene.
Yeah.
Never mind a full feature length. So there's a lot more to criticize as far as like the overall how the decisions mesh together and line up with the overall vision. So yeah, I think that adds up a lot better, which is why there's a lot more movie critics who make a living on it.
Yeah, I mean, like we were saying there about, like the lead of an album and the shuffle. Like the way I'd look at it is, well, it depends on the type of album, I suppose, but
like you can do it like prog or anything like that. That would be sacrilege.
Oh yeah, it would just be a complete mess, especially like concept albums where everything there's a start and end. It's like a story.
Yeah, they're more of a musical play.
Yeah,
on an album, really.
Yeah, like a rock opera and all that.
Yeah,
but like if you mix that about, wouldn't make any sense. There's another one. There was a Greek band called Aphrodite's Child,
right?
Or Aphrodite's Child, whatever. Tomato. But it was actually, one of the members was actually Vangelis. He did a lot of film soundtracks. He did the piece Chariots of Fire.
Yes. Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. He did that for Loneliness of the Lone Distance Runner, and he did Blade Runner soundtrack. And he did a few other big films.
Oh.
But before they split up, they had an album called 666,
right?
And it was all about was it Genesis in the Bible focused on the rapture and 666 and all that?
Revelation.
There's Revelation. It's all focused on that, so that's all
the imagery and sort of what the was telling that story in a.
But it's funny because this album probably came out before, like, heavy metal. Metal became a genre.
Aye.
So whenever you hear, oh, this is a concept album about that, you're sort of thinking to yourself, oh, this is all going to be,
Aye.
even though like this was in the 70s. So the music's a completely different expectation. But yeah, again, that would be one, because it's got a certain path, and that flow was probably set out intentionally for pacing. And even that one that I'm going to finish on, I've tried to, I mix ones around and going, right, okay, so you need certain tempos and you need to slow it down and then speed it up at certain places. Right, do these work in this order? No. Right, okay, change these around. That seems to work better.
Yeah.
So,
and I do think I've used the analogy of a sculpture quite a lot, but I do think that sort of fits quite well, because it is like building blocks to a degree.
Yeah.
And it's, again, to a degree, building the foundation and then adding up on top of that, so you have those bits of flair here and there. But you saying about the fact that they came out with that in the 70s, I feel music doesn't get criticized as much based upon the time period. You'll compare like the very first album of Metallica with something from nowadays, but you'll not consider the time difference or the change in the culture. I think very much you judge them based on their merit to a degree at the time.
I know that's true, because if you look back at some classic albums and production and sound quality for their time, for the most part, I think people judge it based on that, as you say. Whereas, like with films, even like our special effects and everything and level of polish in terms of cinematography and all have completely changed. So when somebody watches like an old Hammer horror from the 60s, go, oh, looks so shit. And going, that was a product of its time. You have to, to me, I don't know, unless something's really bad, if you're engrossed in the overall, if everything that's going on, like the acting, the style, that all just, you just accept it.
I mean, you're watching something like Toy Story, and it's literally just all like CGI. And basically, let's be honest, the style of that CGI is leaning from the old stop motion stuff like Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're still watching like these animated toys.
You know it's not real.
You know it's not real. If you were to look at it purely from a like objective perspective, you'd say this is absolute nonsense. Mm-hmm. But you just get drawn into the story.
Right. To me, that's a sign of something good.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same as like the way you've got a book of Attack on Titan now.
Yes.
Like if you look at anime for the most part, there's a lot of it, is over the top and dramatic, but there's a lot of good stories there.
Yeah, but again, they stay true to the rules of that world. If you know what I mean.
It doesn't break it. It doesn't set up. Here's the itinerary for this world we've built. Oh, by the way, we'll just throw that out the window.
And again, if something does break those rules, that's like a big deal, and they spend a lot of time focusing on why it's such a big deal.
There's a lot of explanation. It's not just like that,
not like writing yourself out of a corner, really, more than anything.
Like the amount of times that new Star Wars trilogy set up things, and then you're just like, what was the point of that?
Yeah,
like
I think that was there was planned to have 3 directors. I think they had 2. That J.J. Abrams and
then Ran Wilson. No. Was it Ran Wilson? What did he call the man that played Dwight in The Office? It was Ran.
Oh.
Anyway, it's
your man there, yeah.
But it's the same guy that did Knives Out and Looper.
But like,
I think it's Rian Johnson, actually.
The thing is that they ended up just basically almost like sparring with each other on screen with the scripts.
It felt like the third one was just retconning.
Yeah.
The second one, and then because it was just, I don't know. I felt like he was trying to reinvent the wheel, but if you're going to reinvent the wheel, you do it at the start of the trilogy, and build from that. You don't just go, oh, I've got this course, and then halfway go, we're going to go get McDonald's, and then it was just because the setup Snoke.
Yes.
And you're going, oh, okay, this guy's mysterious. I wonder what the deal is with him. There's going to be more to him.
And then they killed him off in like the stupidest. I'm sorry, but like any flipping wee Padawan could have not fallen for that trick.
He effectively got completely easily blindsided by his apprentice.
Do you know what it reminds? It reminds me of that Scott Pilgrim bit with the Chris Evans. Do you know where he's the vegan and he like thinks really hard about putting the half and half into one cup, but it's actually in the other to like make him lose his vegan powers.
Oh,
that's basically that, but that's like making fun of it. While in Star Wars, they actually try and make it, oh, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just was very disappointing, I think.
And then not only that, it just felt like as well Finn's character was a total waste.
I really wanted him
to be a Jedi. I thought it would have been way more interesting. A defected stormtrooper who becomes a Jedi, and instead it was just like, what? He played no real
role. I mean, it sounds silly. Like, what are the roles that you want at least a secondary or tertiary character to play? Either to be a sidekick, so they're going to take a practical, active role in the plot. Maybe, if not that, at least a love interest, or
comedy relief.
Yeah, but they tried a little bit to make him comedy relief, but then they did stop that halfway through the film. Then they sort of teased that he was maybe a love interest, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Then they're like teasing that, oh, maybe he has the Force, but then that doesn't happen, and just like, it really just felt very lukewarm.
And then it was even as well with the whole thing with Rey. Like, there was nothing wrong with Daisy Ridley, and there's no disservice to her, but
it
was just the way they built her character. It was just
it's down to the writing and the directing, like, ruined it for her, because I remember hearing she was basically told off for emoting too much.
And they wanted to be more
just very like, not even stern, because that's an actual emotion. But I just wanted her to be very less like emotionless. And it's just like, I know that she is you can tell just by like interviews and stuff, she's a pretty solid actress, and she can she can emote and express herself very well. So it's just done her a massive disservice the way that they've handled that character.
Yeah, it was not only that, the rushed development. Like you look at Luke. Look at Luke. And it pretty much did take them 3 films to get him this, and like he's put down his, well, I know you get the real hardcore Star Wars fans will fight you to death and go, but he's probably put down as like the most powerful Jedi, I don't know, maybe aside from Yoda. And meanwhile, like Rey with no teaching,
Yeah.
was able to suss out how to do mind control, overpower like someone,
resurrect someone from the dead.
Yeah, train. Not only that, also, completely school someone who's effectively meant to be a Sith Lord, who's been, top of and she's never wielded a lightsaber before, and he's going, what?
I love from the sort of older trilogies the idea of the blue and the green lightsabers. One of them is to indicate that you're powerful with the Force, and the other one's for powerful with sword skill. So basically, you got maybe one who's more of a martial type of person, and one who's more Force power.
Suppose that's like in Naruto. You've got, was it the ninjutsu, shinjutsu, and genjutsu or something?
So different schools, I suppose, or just even different strengths. But if you could have had her as a savant in the Force, because they had where she was like a triad in the Force or a dyad in the Force. So it was just again, sort of the chosen one type of shtick. So fair enough. But at the very least, have her then just very powerful in the Force and intuitive in the Force, but don't have her being able to outfight people with the lightsaber. Have her struggling with that, but then just working around that and using her strengths.
It seems to be an issue with a lot of modern right now where they don't know. It's like they're afraid to show that, I don't know. It seems to be afraid to show that female characters can have shortcomings.
Yeah, I think
which is, I know, I don't know, but I don't know. To me, it's just boring, regardless of gender background. If a character is impervious and the face no hardship, it's just, why watch it?
It's almost the Marvelization of it almost, because you have that in the same way with, regardless of gender, with the likes of Iron Man and all these, and Spider-Man and stuff. You see them getting smashed through buildings and stuff like that. And Iron Man, yeah, he's in a metal suit, but he's a dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have a bit of a bruised rib at the very least. I think at the end of the day, it sort of loses its edge to a degree whenever you don't see the repercussions or the damage of their actions, really.
If someone's not even getting wounded, because I know that I haven't seen it, but apparently the remake of Mulan, the original animated one, she needed a bit of work to get her to the level that she was, a competent fighter and all that, and there was a learning process,
mm-hmm.
and she had to overcome things. Whereas if the character's like that from the outset, it's just
but thinking back on it, the original Mulan would be deemed a feminist movie.
Yeah.
Because it's also showing the other guys who were in that army had to overcome their own problems, and it was them working together. You the big fella who's strong, the guy who's a bit more taller and spindly, and then her outthinking the problem as well. So at the end of the day, it's the power of teamwork. but I mean, it sounds cheesy, but that's what you're trying to teach kids.
I'll be honest, I actually think that probably the best one that did it recently was Prey. You haven't seen it, have you?
Haven't, no.
It's the lead character in that is a woman, and then it was they give good writing to sort of build her up, for you to root for, and all, but also explain how she's able to go toe to toe and survive for as long as she does. It's not like she can she's a better archer or a better fighter than men that are maybe twice her body weight, which it pretty much put it down to it. She had an upper hand on the others because of her intelligence and her insight and taking things in and being observant, which is pretty important.
Mm-hmm.
But rather than we'll make her really butch for some reason, and she talks down to everyone, and that just generally an unlikable character. That because it used to be that if a character just generally disrespected everyone within a 5-foot radius, they were usually deemed as the bad guy or the antagonist or something. They'd go, I'm not rooting for this person. Now it's become some sort of badge of honor.
because even an anti-hero was still likable.
They still give them like they'll give an examples of them, you maybe them showing a bit of like vulnerability, or like they'll show they've got a soft spot for something, or that they can be selfless or something.
There's actually, one of these books here, it's called Save the Cat, and it's them talking the fact that at some point your villain, you want to show your villain, they use it as an example where they're saving a cat out of a tree, where they're doing something which makes them human, because no one is wholly evil.
I know. Because well, that's true, because I suppose if they're just, there's nothing redeemable, you're just like, it gets harder to buy into them being a real character.
Yeah, well, they become a cardboard cutout, or like a straw man, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it just like, it doesn't build up this sort of person that the hero can actually fight with, because at the end of the day, they're just like a 2D or a one-dimensional creature that's just going to get knocked over because good beats evil. Like an example that came to my head was like the Joker in The Dark Knight. Obviously, the character of the Joker in that movie doing terrible things, just like doing all this terrible stuff, but you still can't help but like him a bit, just because it's just pure eccentricity, and you know what I mean.
He's always, I don't know, it's just with the right actor, and definitely in that case shows, it could be way more interesting. It's just I don't know. It's bad. As weird as it sounds, there's just something with human nature that we're more driven to be more curious about the
darker aspects. Well, I mean, it's why people watch like serial killer documentaries and like horror movies and stuff. I think it's knowing that
morbid curiosity.
Yeah, I think it's like we know that stuff happens, and there's that sort of thing of, well, how does that happen? Like, what drives someone to actually do that kind of stuff?
Over the edge.
Yeah.
I know. I say it's more worrying if you get someone that like glamorizes ones like that, but it's the concept of like what we were saying about, where you can have people laugh at dark humor.
Yeah.
You're laughing at because, well, most normal people would be laughing because they know I shouldn't be laughing at this, rather than,
if that horrible thing was happening in front of me, I'd be laughing as well.
Yeah, it's not like, I don't want to give too specific a joke, but like if someone makes a joke about Fred West, you're not. I wouldn't like to think you're laughing at the victims. You're laughing at because you're going, I know that's really wrong.
Yeah, if anything, you're laughing at him.
Like the thing we said before about making fun of a certain political figure in Germany's history.
Again, it's taking power away from that icon, I suppose, because the problem is, for some messed up human beings, that individual has become an icon.
Is.
I don't know if I told you the story. I was would have been Munich, and I was away on like one of those wee walking tours. And there's a bit.
I think you did tell me this, yeah.
And I was taking you just around to where, sort of like this Y junction, and just where it sort of the V would connect to go a straight line. There's basically like this sort of big stage in marble with these like columns and stuff like that. But at the side, there's just like these wee like whitened silhouettes, like something's been taken down. And the tour guide was explaining to us that, in the past, whenever Hitler had gotten into power, he had put up these things to commemorate the people who like died during the Munich Putsch, which was the attempted uprising that they had. I think it was maybe, can't remember the exact date. My history teacher would be slapping me at the minute. But essentially, he was explaining the history of this and so on and so forth. So if I'm like saying this to you, like as the tour guide, as the sort of people who are like listening to him, we're staring at this stuff behind us. Someone walks up behind them, clicks their heels and does the salute, and then just walks on.
No, I don't. No, that's definitely.
Did I not tell you that? No. And like the rest of us, we were like in shock because we were like waiting for the fella to like turn around to a group of friends who were going to start laughing. You know, we thought this is some scumbag tourist trying to be funny. No, just carried on with the rest. And the tour guide stopped and asked us like why we were so like shocked and confused. We said to him, and he's like, right, okay, come on. Basically, he was like trying to find the guide for us to point him out, because that's obviously a big deal that you don't want. It's an arrestable offence to be doing that stuff in Germany, and rightly so.
Like, why? Because I think I don't think they want to repeat.
No. Scary, like. So like I was in shock, like, to that.
Yeah, it's the same as, well, actually maybe not the same, but going to Auschwitz and like seeing people taking selfies is going.
I think some people might disagree. I think taking photos is okay, because I think it's important to have your own personal sort of touch point so that you can remember the experience. But because I remember I went to Dachau, which was the camp outside Munich, and I remember people saying like whenever they went to these places that they like had a feeling, you know, that they got chills and they got a feeling of evil almost.
It's like a weird dread.
Yeah. And I was like, you're talking out your backside. There's no way that happened. But I think 3 times I experienced it, which was once going through the gate where it had work will set you free.
But Mike Fry, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the other one was like this patch of grass. And it was basically what happened was if you stepped on like the grass, you would have just been shot dead.
I believe that, yeah.
So there were a lot of folks who basically, whenever they decided they'd had enough, would just do that as a way of ending things. And then the last one for me was, I've lost the train of thought. Oh yes, they were showing like the cells, and there was the cell of, I don't remember if you would have known the quote. Can't remember the fella's name now, sadly, but basically he had this quote where it was like, when they came for the communists, I said nothing, I wasn't a communist. When they came for the Jews, I said nothing, I wasn't a Jew. And he sort of goes through all the people that picked up, and then he said like, and when they came for me, like there was no one else to speak up for me, sort of thing. Which, because I remember that whenever I was doing history, and it was quite creepy to think that, okay, so like that quote that I just remember memorizing, that's where this fella ended up. You know, so it just really hammered home the reality of it, I suppose. So it's definitely not a pleasant experience, but it's definitely an experience that I think folks should.
Oh, I was six with you. You know what though, like going through that, but not to make light of it, but definitely not. But the one thing that stuck with me, I found really strange at Auschwitz, was they'll have a sign that tells you about things that you can't bring with you. And see some of the things that were marked out. I'm not joking you. I
wonder why someone thought to bring it.
Some of them are like, so someone actually did that. Like, you know, there were some real weird ones. Like, don't bring musical instruments. Who the fucking goes, hey guys, let's bring the band to Auschwitz and let's do a song.
Band here.
You know, and then there was another one, and this is no joke. It was like no bombs. Terrible. Like, you know, again, like in the room, I goes, I've got this mortar that hasn't exploded. I'll bring it with me to Auschwitz.
I've got the Semtex and Armalite, so
let's have a blast. But no, there was others actually that I've forgotten. I might have actually, I don't know if they let you take a photo of the sign, but I remember at the time going, this is surreal, because it's a real somber place, and even looking at the place just looks like, you know, depressing.
Yeah, it's almost like just what's being there. Almost everything goes into like grayscale. Almost.
Yeah. I like if someone was to throw a bag over your head and put you in a car and drop you in the middle there, and you didn't know where you were, you would probably get a weird vibe just from the place. Just, I don't know. It's really hard to put into words. But then I say, when you're going around and you're seeing like, you know, a room with like so many tons of human hair and like discarded glasses and kids' shoes and all, and seeing how many there, you're like, that's crazy. And to think that there's people believe it never happened.
I think that's the scariest thing. But I
sort of wonder if there was people just, you know, kid themselves to want to believe that because they've got certain preferences and
or it could be that they're just in such denial that people could do that on such a massive scale.
It's either no, nothing that bad could ever happen, or they're anti-Semitic.
Yeah,
I would say one or the other, maybe both. But I just it's definitely one. It's definitely one I would recommend people to do, but at the same time, don't expect to be coming out. After it's going, it's good, wasn't it?
You're not going to be enjoying it.
It's not like coming out of a water park.
No, definitely not. But I think it is a worthwhile experience. So it is.
Well, to be fair, you may as well make good memories. I know that's a terrible way to word it, but you know what I mean.
It's not. It's making
impressionable.
It's having experiences.
Well, I don't know. I would like to think that something like that would teach someone a bit of humility and respect.
Yeah. I think it's a good learning experience.
But I know, I did see there was someone talking about Auschwitz and Birkenau, and there was somebody said, feeling like that something like this should be, something that everyone that gets taught history should have to go see at some point.
Yeah.
There's some guy going, I think we'll learn enough about it going, so a few 100 million deaths isn't serious enough for you?
Yeah. But also there's a difference between reading about it and
seeing firsthand.
I'm sorry, I know there's just a feeling that you cannot put onto paper or even speak that really nails home the feeling whenever you're there, and it really drives home the reality of what happened.
Yeah, it's mental. Well, fingers crossed that'll be it. But I say the more that people try and suppress history and act like it never happened, the more likely it's to happen again. Sure, look at burnings and all, and it has happened multiple times through history.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think the sort of what's the word? The coal mine. What do you call it? Canary in the coal mine? I suppose is whenever you're trying to silence one thing or the other. It's where you can't have open discourse.
The thing is though, if someone's argument is truly that stupid, you let them get on with it and let them so if you're trying to silence them, why is that? That's the way I'd be looking at it.
Well, that sort of thing. What is it? Light is the best disinfectant. If it's a stupid idea, and that's a very delicate discussion to have these days.
It's a thin line, because you do get some people that I feel like they want to be contrarians.
But also, and it's the concern as well of people getting caught up in the hype necessarily, or getting picked up in the sort of maelstrom, the storm of emotion, rather than having logical discourse. Because there'd be things that me and you wouldn't agree with, but me and you would chat through them and
and that's the way it should be, rather than people screeching each other.
Yeah, exactly. And we may not actually come to an agreement, but we'll learn something or understand from different perspectives that we never knew about before.
I don't know how people have got to the point now that they can't just accept that people see things differently.
Yeah.
It's if you can have supporters that of a football club that have hit each other for half a millennium or something. No.
Half a century?
Yeah, half a century, sorry. Millennium. For half a century, then effectively, why, and you can get people that are mates supporting these teams that hate each other and just wind each other up about it.
Yeah. Again, I think it almost ties back to what we were talking about with Highlands at gigs and stuff like that. There's some folks here just looking at an excuse to have a scrap, whilst a lot of folks just want to have a laugh and poke fun. I mean, it's almost to the same. We're
more fragmented too.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
even though we're meant to be more connected.
Yeah, well, I mean, the way I just remember hearing, you think about on the road back in the day. So, say a family couldn't afford to cook a dinner or something, their neighbor would have cooked something extra, and over the back fence, given it to them so people wouldn't see it, to sort of spare them the embarrassment. And like there was very much a community aspect.
No, well, that video I sent on to you like 1 or 2 months back. But it was, the whole video was like pretty much like multiple psychologists and all pretty much like everything, like, and talking about Nietzsche and all that, and saying about the death of God and all that. And saying about that by doing that, like, by
what was it?
man adopting that, it's effectively then getting to the point going, creating an existential crisis.
Yeah.
Like, because obviously I'm not really a religious person, but I do agree that having a belief maybe in there being something to adhere to gives a reason for things, whereas if you remove the reason for everything, it's just like, that's where
I think you need a moral standard.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've listened to well-known atheists and stuff like that argue that we could come up with our own, but it's a very difficult thing to come up with your own without building on what has already come. If that makes sense. And the only way you could really do it is to go with the exact opposite. And the problem is the exact opposite is not a good thing. If you know what I mean, like the exact opposite of what we have now, where we don't value individual human beings and stuff like that.
Well, that's pretty much like the blueprint for every dystopian film or book, isn't it?
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like I think you have to. I frankly like. I would never force my opinions or beliefs on folks, but I do think you need to at the very least accept the fact that sort of the moral standard has had an impact and has had a positive impact on the whole, which it's a tricky balance to have with a lot of folks because people don't like being told what to do.
Exactly.
I think that's why you have a lot of folks who are like, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious.
I don't understand that.
I find it interesting, but also kind of dangerous because you're inviting yourself to be duped to a degree.
And that's actually the word I was going to use.
Like, there's a reason why the vast majority of religions have like a hierarchy. It's to make sure that people aren't being like taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And again, don't get me wrong. You want the perfect company, you want the perfect church, look in an empty room because we're all human beings at the end of the day, so there's going to be mistakes. But the fact is that you need some sort of structure to make sure that people aren't going to be, again, taken advantage of or tricked.
Well, sure, look at the people with cults and all that.
Yeah. Again, a lot of them are very much just like
they're looking for something, but they don't know what, and then they get pretty much manipulated, and they're going, "Oh, this is it." That's why, like, if you ever read into that case of that Waco in America, but to be fair, that's not the only one. Sure, have you ever read into? Is it Heaven's Gate? No, it's mental. That was like literally like that group in America, and they believed that something about that they were going to transition, that something about that there was going to be an alien ship was going to pass over at a certain date or time, and that they were going to transition and leave their human bodies and be transported into this vessel,
sort of like
and taken into like
an ascension into a higher realm of being, sort of thing.
Yeah. And originally, I think it was started by a man and his wife, and the wife died. I can't remember if she got cancer or something. So he was going ahead of it anyway. But they pretty much all agreed. They were going, right, we're all gonna, I don't know what they took, but they took something effectively effectively mass suicide. But the weird thing is, I mean, they recorded like videos and all of them all like being interviewed and talking about it and being excited for it and being like, I know, I accept it and all, I believe in all this. Going, but yeah, I'd say it's just strange that somebody just accepts it and goes, I think you're going,
I think, trying to find the right way to word this. I think there's a danger. The danger is that a lot of those sort of belief systems end up going along the road of self-destruction.
Oh well.
You know what I mean? And I don't have a reason for that, but that's it. Well, I mean, that seems to be the pattern that there is there.
It's like martyrdom.
Yeah.
Seems like you man. Was it Jim Jones? That one with the compound in America.
Aye.
The Kool-Aid.
Aye.
That's where that saying comes from. Don't drink from the Kool-Aid.
Aye.
Yeah,
because I've used that in a work environment. You know, the whole rah corporate culture. Oh, they've drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Yeah. But the topic took a serious turn.
Yeah. Then went pretty dark, but we'll try and steer it
from me being sick in my mouth in a taxi.
Aye, that's right. We may cut a little bit of this depending on. Well, maybe we'll play it back and decide.
I'll let you decide.
Because that's going to be the trick, isn't it, for us? It's going to be having open conversation, but also keeping our jobs. So we'll need to strike that balance. So
I know, because unfortunately now, like we said, you can't have discourse if you make a joke, even if it's just a jab, not even a character assassination. There's a high chance that people will want your head on a pike.
Yeah, and it's again. I think we might have got cut from the last episode because for those who don't know about technical issues, so it had to cut it a bit short. But I mean, we were saying the fact that over here our humor is dark humor and it's self-deprecating humor, but also it's insulting other people. Like that's how we show affection, is making fun of you.
Yeah, it's like endearment. Yeah.
Like if you meet someone new and they don't insult you by the end of the night, they might not like you.
You
know, like that's a sign of them. If they make fun of you a little bit and poke fun, then they probably think you're dead on.
Yeah. If they do it, if they do it to your face, that's success.
Yeah.
If you hear that they've done it when you're not around, probably not a good sign. Yeah. But I don't know. I think there was actually watching that YouTube channel. You ever seen My Critical Drinker?
Yes.
The way he has like an after hours one. So he's sitting on a podcast talking with other YouTubers.
Yeah.
And you ever seen the guy Chris Gore? He's like a film critic. Now I think he worked in TV and stuff as well, but he's I actually didn't realize that I followed him years back on Twitter before I seen him on YouTube.
Oh.
I don't know what caused me to follow him. I don't know if I'd seen one or two of his tweets and I was like, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, him pretty much talking about how now he thinks that like film and TV has been affected by the fact that there's people being hired, and the fact that there's such an emphasis on HR, and they're saying about that they've said companies they would like not have HR because it's just like once it gets its teeth in, it just ruins everything because they're so focused on the wrong things because they usually attract the people that would deem themselves as activists and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the people that have like they're trying to sort of start their own crusade for nothing. And like saying, for example, that like the guy Chris Gore had mentioned he'd been on he didn't elaborate what, but it was like a set for like a film or TV. But I think it was at the time during COVID. So, you know, everyone had the mask and all that. So there was I think it was a director, apparently was quite sick. And he was wearing those and he like sneezed inside. And he said, could someone get me a tissue? It just splooged in this. And apparently they had a whole formal meeting. Apparently there was someone new had complained.
For using the word splooged?
Yeah.
Why? Because that has a connotation?
Well, I don't even know like what's offensive about that. I don't even know how that could be interpreted.
You could say it's maybe like a synonym for another act, shall we say? Maybe, but that's a stretch.
But again, that's open to interpretation.
Yeah, like that's to quote Bill Burr. You know, once that left my mouth, you know, it went into your ear, it got cut up with your whole childhood, and now.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, that's him just speaking very casually. I would say something like that.
I think now, as bad as it sounds, I do think it's good to a certain degree that if employers value their employees, but I think there's give and take. There's a certain limit that whenever people are acting like children in an adult workspace, they need to be saying, well, you know, listen, if that's going to greaten you, I think you'd be best going somewhere else. talking about the whole cultural difference and sense of humor. There was at one point today, and I didn't expect people to laugh whenever I only said it loud enough, thinking that one or two would say it, but there was someone in our office in another team, and the sneeze, but it was one of the weirdest sneezes I've ever heard. But rather than going, it was like, ah! I just went, and there was a few of us sort of looked at each other, and I went, don't know if that was a sneeze or if we should call an exorcist. And they started laughing. They're going out. Well, at least they'll know that's something that transcends.
Yeah.
They know this isn't exclusive to like a dry sense of humor over here.
And well, I think it's also like they knew you weren't being mean. They were just like having a laugh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's a difference between like there's certain people can get away with saying certain things that
some folks who just get away with murder. Like
I know those people. If they said something offensive, to be honest, I'm hard to. I wouldn't be easily offended. It'd be more people's actions that to me I read into would bother me more than someone like what we said about someone saying something in your face.
I think it's tone of voice. Someone could say something that is genuinely like the words themselves have no weight, but you can tell by their tone of voice they want you to be annoyed or upset. They want a reaction from you.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, someone could say some truly horrific nonsense.
Yeah.
But you can tell in their tone of voice they're trying to be funny.
Yeah.
So even if you don't find it funny, you're not going to be upset because their intent was well-meaning, I suppose.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah, 100%.
It's there was a clip of your man Zach Galifianakis. He used that as an example for like going, eat a crap, baby, eat a crap, baby. Yeah, pretty much. I don't know. There's some people are blessed with it. There's an example. There was you ever heard of the guy Armando Iannucci?
No.
He's a comedy writer, and he was involved in Alan Partridge and the Day Today and Brass Eye. And have you ever heard the series in the thick of it?
Yes, yeah.
He did that, and he did In the Loop and all. I think he does a lot of sort of more like political comedy now. He did Veep as well. It was the American version of In the Thick of It. But he did a fine called, I think it was called Stupid Version 2004. But the whole thing was it was meant to be like I think it was like 20 or 30 years in the future looking back at the events of 2004. So there was at one point, this was around the time whenever Tony Blair had stepped down and Gordon Brown had taken over. But it had this brilliant analogy where it was meant to be someone being interviewed and them saying, the difference was, Tony could shit in your hat and you'd want to buy him a drink, but Gordon could buy you a drink and you'd want to shit in his hat. And it's like, yes, that's a perfect example. It's like, it's just some people are just cursed with the likability factor to get away with anything. There's other people, bless them, they've done nothing wrong, but for some reason, I don't know, they just don't, I don't know. It's strange. I don't know if it's their face. I don't know. It's hard to describe. Yeah, I don't know. Needs get. It depends on what side of bed you wake up.
Well, that's it. Yeah, like I always sort of wonder, like with folks, because you get some folks who'll only meet you like once, and like if you're having a good day, they'll think, oh, that's a nice person, and so for the rest of their life, if they ever think back to that interaction, they'll think of you positively. But also, what's on the flip side, that could be the 1 hour that you were feeling grumpy, and they'll think, "Oh, that guy's a nasty so and so."
Yeah.
And they think that you're going around kicking puppies and like, it's so interesting. Just you can be a different person in potentially hundreds of people's minds. Really.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, and
your brain really doing that.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, depending on what this way of the person, you have the good or bad person of could work every way for you.
Yeah, that's it. Like it's a very it's interesting. Like because you always wonder like how you're perceived, not in an insecure way, but just more of a curious sort of way. Like someone catches you on an off day, are they going to sort of think, oh, that person just like is a grumpy so and so, or is it that they just again they could just forget about you? Because let's be honest, you meet goodness knows how many people, or you walk past so many people that you never really remember. I remember hearing a random fact that whenever you're dreaming, your brain can't actually come up with random faces. But what it does is it lifts faces from like people that you've walked past and stuff like that, because it just collects all that in the subconscious.
So it's effectively your brain's like an AI artwork generator.
Yeah, pretty much that. Yeah, like pretty much. Yeah, pretty much it just like stores all this stuff so you don't realize what you remember. But then again, that sort of touches back to what you were saying with random connections. Like some days you can go down this rabbit hole of connecting 4 or 5 things together. It's almost just like layering on these webs of connections. And other days you can just forget if you had a cup of coffee in the morning.
Yeah, the amount of times there's a term for that whole thing where, more effectively you go based on pure muscle memory and motivation, where there's no conscious decision. So like, if you're driving to work and you literally can't remember the commute, that sort of thing. There's like
it's scary when that happens though. Like you're driving, it's like, wait a minute, I don't remember going through those traffic lights.
Why is there a cyclist in my sunroof? Yeah. And there I was, and Your Honor, I don't know how he got there.
He fell from the sky. I mean, like,
well, he shouldn't have been in front of me. You know what? I learned my lesson one time being stuck behind a cyclist for about 10 minutes coming up the Antrim Road.
Yeah.
And putting like some sort of joke on Twitter, like going, I would love to replicate that old car advert with Justin, someone with a big wet fish, but didn't with a cyclist. and oh my god, there must have been about 4 or 5 like angered cyclists. And going that you'd think I like murdered their family.
You were threatening a drive-by.
Like, calm down. You must be fun at parties. And walking around in your lycra. I always find it funny that people can laugh at other people's expenses, but the moment that something close to them gets mocked,
but then again, you're in the wrong target market. You're on Twitter.
I know.
You said yourself, it's either victims or people wanting to be upset.
I actually might just shut up because I don't really see any benefit to it because it's more toxic than Chernobyl. And the fact that like you have any opinion and there's going to be someone gets a glimpse of it, counteracts it, and isn't happy until you're destitute. And then you're like, probably the only, and then you limit it to how much you can say without making a thread of tweets. And you're going, what? I mean, what? I know, fair enough. You don't need to write a book to be profound, but I don't know if you can be truly profound being limited to 140 characters. And let's be honest, there's probably 98.9% of people on Twitter aren't profound.
Oh, that's it. Like it's a lot of it's nonsense. But like I think the whole limit, I think that's why it got popular. That was its sort of like little niche. Was this sort of this is what makes it stand out. But also that's why it's become such a cesspool, is because it's such a short like character limit.
Yeah.
That you need to be as like bombastic,
concise.
Just like as overt as humanly possible.
I get your point across. Yeah. Regardless of nuance.
There's no nuance. There's no like balance. And even if you do that, like part 1, part 2, part 3, people aren't gonna read. They're gonna accidentally jump into like part 5, which is gonna be the one, of course, Sod's Law, the one which says the controversial thing, and you're back to square one.
Case in point, when you get those people that say, I'm not racist, but, and you're going, well, I'm sure the end of this statement is going to be interesting.
Slowly back away.
I know. And you're like, let's see what damage control you've got here. I've got people that are friends that aren't white.
Oh.
You're going, I always tend to find that with everything on either side of political spectrum. The people that try to seem like they're trying very hard or overcompensate are usually the people you should be wary of, because why are you trying to convince me?
You're trying to overcorrect. You've done something or you've said something that might come to light.
Like, there's an example. There's a YouTube channel called Explore with Us, and it's literally all focused on true crime cases. So it's this guy that has this. To be honest, he sounds like if he didn't work in TV at some point, he really should work in TV. He's got this voice for presenting evidence, going, at this point, Charlie knows he's been caught. He's got the delivery. Like, my delivery was terrible though, but his delivery is just, he's got the voice and everything for it.
BBC Panorama sort of watchdog maybe.
With a like a American sensationalist.
Yes, yeah.
Fox News. That sort of. But now I can't actually remember how it got to that point.
We were talking about Twitter controversy, skeletons in the closet, about the fact that people trying to overcorrect.
Oh yes. So I'll overcompensate. Yes. So there was actually a case, and the whole thing was about these guys, and not to again make the tone too serious, but effectively they broke in this house and they killed this woman, and they tried to kill the daughter, but thankfully the daughter survived, and she was able to identify them and give them all the details. But like, before they sort of, the detectives obviously had the one separate, and there's they're testing the waters with them to say, what were you doing in this thing, just to see what they come up with. And whenever they turn around and they'll say, oh, did you hear about the woman that was murdered and the girl that's in the hospital, and them, even though like one was involved, going, like, I'm old fashioned, I wouldn't even hit a woman because I just think that's wrong. You're going, the fact that you're giving all this unnecessary detail to give insight into your character is probably an indication of the complete opposite.
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's sort of one of those things. You can tell someone's lying by if they give unnecessary information. Again, obviously, there's going to be folks who just like ramble. I'm a bit of a rambler.
Yeah. But if it seems out of character and they've just done it for just that, yeah.
And the way that I sort of describe it is, if they're spitting the words and the statement out almost as if it's like made of fire. They're trying to spit it out as fast as humanly possible and as much as humanly possible. Like, they're trying to just like get this burning like lie out of their body, out of their mouth. Then it's probably a lie. Like, because I've had that before where someone was like, just in the space of like 2 seconds, give a full spiel, which was unnecessary. I was like,
it just seemed like we were too well prepared for this. Yeah. No. And getting people doing that with like certain like social media trends and jumping on the bandwagon and pretty much attacking everyone who's not doing the same. It's like this weird trend mentality. Yeah. You're going, well, if you don't agree with this and if you don't share this, then you're part of a problem. I'm going, am I?
If that's sort of them versus us, which again is right, but at the end of the day, there's not really a them versus us. There's things that are wrong, things that are right. People try their best to do what's right, and
I think it feeds in that thing I mentioned earlier again about the whole thing of people wanting learning and purpose. So people find learning and purpose in groups.
People are wanting a conquest, really.
I sometimes think, as bad as it sounds, if someone was to go, oh, here's the plug for the internet, click, there would probably be a lot of people more happier for it.
Yeah, like, I think at the very social media, it's a very silly thing, but probably
I don't think we're ready for it in terms of a human development.
No. I think the problem came whenever it no longer became a social network and became social media. I don't know when that actually happened, because you think it was like Bebo, MySpace, then Facebook came along, and it was still a social network. It was still networking, so actually talking to individual people. But then it became media. It became this, basically, again, like with the wall on Facebook, the Facebook wall, where people were posting and putting stuff up, and it became just like the creation, the generation, and the consuming of content, which I think that was the sort of birth of it, really, of the issue.
I think though, you know, Facebook's attempt to go with the metaverse. I think I think they've just completely overshot their expectations.
Yeah.
I think they were expecting more.
I think,
you know what, I was, whenever it was talked about in theory and about effectively, you know, the idea of like an evolution of the internet, you know, like something. But then again, I think they were taking it from a perspective of people effectively living in it. It was like they were trying to set the blueprints for Ready Player One. But I think they jumped the gun. I think you effectively need AR and VR to be at the level where it's just like a pair of glasses like that.
And again, there's some AR glasses that, to me, that are getting popular, but to me technically aren't AR. They're pretty much they're like a screen on your eye. You know, so it's literally like your phone screen, but here, like on your glasses, which isn't AR. AR is like, I look at, I don't know.
Yeah, it effectively it factors in, for example, that shelf.
Yeah.
And it could render books on that shelf.
Yeah. So it could look on a shelf and say that I have like volume 1, 2 of a series, and suggests same in the bookshop or whatever, and it's like, oh, they don't have volume 3, and based upon what we have on your bought list, you don't have it either. Would you like us to put it in order for it to be delivered? Silly example, but it's being a lot more intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
Strangely enough, a good example of it was the Google Glass trailer that they had way back when. Like, it was a bit hokey, but not hokey, that's not fair. Very much a moonshot, where it was like, you know, doing everything through Google, the Google Glass stuff, which was like, you know, they had like one of those posters for a concert going up, and it was going to be like you saying like, okay, Google, you know, basically get me tickets for blah blah blah, and I would get the details off that poster and go and do it.
That'd be cool, yeah.
It was like personal GPS, where it would show you the directions walking around the street up on your thing. Like, it didn't really work out that way for them. I think, again,
Pantone know it.
Yeah, like I think also at that point people weren't comfortable with the idea of having a camera constantly, because this was about 10 years maybe now at this point. So nowadays I don't think people would care.
No.
But I think it's also just the technology, it's getting there, but the way I sort of describe it is, you need to have a platform first before you have the product.
Yeah.
Almost. So you need to have a group of people that you've built a lot of trust with, and you have to have earned that trust properly.
Yeah.
And then you slowly introduce this stuff that
they
are interested in.
That was Facebook's bad approach with it, was making people have to have a Facebook account to use the Oculus headsets. Yeah. They should have kept that as two separate entities. Because that left a bad taste in people's mouths. And then not only that, the whole thing with Meta was you needed effectively something unique that no one else was doing to set apart. It was just like VR chat, but didn't look as good as VR chat and didn't have as much going for it.
I mean, I'm sorry, but they have the money. They should have just bought over VR chat and integrated it, if that's the art style they wanted to go for. But like, realistically, well, to sort of bring a point in, I think they were just doing like a moonshot to try and get the return on investment in Oculus, because they spent a whack of money on that.
Yeah.
But also, I think realistically, what they gave was like VR Second Life. From way back when, which was just like a video game that people lived in. But even then, that had a bit more success, I think.
Yeah, it went for a good while. Yeah. But again, it was another one of those ones that there was a few games like Second Life. There was a few weird ones. I remember seeing videos on YouTube that still have weird cult followings, but with like weird people in it, that still roam about the servers, like, you know, like, fair play. You know, commitment. But I don't know. Part of me would love to see the whole VR AR thing sort of becoming. I know, like, it did better than I expected, even though like it hasn't changed the world. The Oculus sold more units than I expected, But I think their downside is software. It's if they can get the right people on board to make the right games.
I think because
that's it.
Yeah,
that's all I need.
The big thing is they have the hardware, but the problem is that what they do is they build out third-party support.
Yep.
So they build it so that other people can build the software. But nowadays the problem is that no one's going. There's no reason for people to invest, and I have to think it's a lot of money, regardless of even the cheaper versions of them is still expensive.
Yeah.
So basically, you need to have a solid foundation that gets people comfortable that okay, even if no one else does anything with this, I still get my money's worth.
Yeah, and there's a return.
Yeah, there's a return on the investment.
And it seems to be now that the model that seems to be taken by nearly every company is, here's a free game.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got this battle pass. We've got microtransactions. To be fair, like I don't think they're overly a bad thing because you're not, it's different if the things you're buying into are like some sort of in-game enhancer. If it's cosmetic based, who cares?
Yeah.
But at the same time,
if it becomes pay to win, that's when it's a problem.
At that point, then I'm done.
Although, have you seen the UI for the Modern Warfare 2 game?
If they change it, why? What?
No, because they did the remake for Modern
Warfare. Yeah.
The UI for it's absolutely monstrous. Like,
was it just bye?
No. It's literally I am trying to join a party with my friends, or I'm trying to get to the multiplayer menu. I need to go down 3 or 4 things and find this one metro thing, but it's just as a flipping front end developer, this genuinely upsets me.
You're like, why not make this more user accessible?
Yeah. What way is thinking? Clearly, there was some thought that was put into this. Maybe not a lot, but there was some thought. So yeah, that's an example of where the accountants or the sales folks maybe had a bit more of a say than they should have. Whereas it's let's show all this cool stuff that people can buy. I just want to play the game.
It's the fact now that that the majority of games development cycle probably involves them developing infrastructure for reaping further profit after the game has been bought.
Every game needs a marketplace.
I don't know. It's unfortunately set a bad precedent because we're now at the point now that there's probably games. Well, single player games. I think eventually you're going to find them getting fewer and far between because publishers are going to be like, well, we're going to sell it for this game, but is there any way we can get any more money after that?
I think it becomes. It's down to the priority of the company. But the problem is they're a business. They're no longer a creative aspect. They are a software company.
Yeah, it's effectively just we need a turnover. We need
And again, let's be honest, the battle passes and stuff like that, that is reliable, mappable income on a monthly basis that they can take to shareholders, whilst saying, hey, we're going to make a single player game. It's going to take us 3 years, and if we then need to sell however many copies to make this much profit. That's an actual investment, which, even though historically we know, depending on obviously there's risks with a new IP or something like that, but for the vast majority of cases, we know that they'll make the money. But 3 years is a long time for an investor to sit on their money.
Yeah.
So they're not going to necessarily take that risk. You have success stories like The Witcher and Horizon Zero Dawn, Zelda, and stuff like that. Like these single player games that have massive followings.
Yeah.
That have developed these massive followings. It's not just Zelda has a history, so it has a history brand recognition.
Yeah.
But The Witcher as a video game franchise, up until 3, no one 2 maybe had a bit of a fan base. 1 there was nothing. Really.
No, because it was only on PC.
Yeah, but the 3rd one was really where it hit off.
So
there's a place for it. It's just whether or not investors are going to be brave enough to
take the chance.
Yeah, 100%.
I know. There's a amount of time as well. And now things like Twitch influence it because you get a streamer Sure, like in Among Us, there was no one. Apparently, when it came out, it was out for like a year. No one really played it. A few streamers started playing it. Boom, millions bought.
The other one I was trying to think of was Hogwarts Legacy.
Even with the controversy, in fact, it might have actually served to sell more copies.
I would say a lot of sales was just basically people taking a stand one way or the other.
I actually believe that the people that were trying to, boycott it actually inadvertently probably made it more successful than it was. I know, like it. I would say now. I think when it was released, I would say a lot of people were maybe surprised at how good it was. I haven't played it, but all the reports I've heard, like everyone seems to love it.
I'll be honest, with all the hype, I thought it was an MMO. I thought it was going to be like a multiplayer where you'd see people around Hogwarts and interact with them.
That to me is the logical step, like, you'd think.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like I've played it a bit and it's a solid game. They've handled, like, it's probably the best Harry Potter game that we've gotten. It's what you wanted whenever you picked it up as a kid.
Yeah.
But as you say, I think it's given a good platform for actually introducing like a multiplayer environment for that. But just thinking about that, like, for some reason my brain went to Skyrim, and like, because someone tried to make a multiplayer version of Skyrim, but then I heard of a new. I think you might have posted this, like using ChatGPT to generate like responses and stuff like that.
The NPCs remember what you've done and all that in the world, and I think that to me is something exciting. Now, some could turn around and say, "Oh, well, that could put like game dialogue writers and all the rest," but there's probably going to need to be some level of input still, surely.
I think it works. If anything, it'll make their job more enjoyable in a way, if that makes sense, because it drives their work to be solely on the creative. The creative aspect.
I focusing on like the quest.
Yeah, like they don't need to do the grunt work of physically writing this stuff out. They need to come up with the lore. They need to come up with like the histories and stuff like that. And again, the writers are involved in that because it's a story. And yeah, I think there's a place for that. So
I would love to see though some of the bugs in the testing for that. I'm sure there'd be some would be hilarious. Hey, you're that guy that jumped over a wall.
Yeah, like sort of having a priority sort of system to it. But I think it's also a bit of a good screw you to Warner Brothers. Was it Warner Brothers who had the Shadow over Middle Earth? No, Shadow over
Shadow of Mordor, was it?
Shadow of Mordor, because they that Nemesis system that they had with that, where you could like fight this like an orc, and if they beat you, they would level up.
Yeah,
and they could become like a big bad, and they'd remember you. They patented that technology.
Didn't they?
Oh yeah, they patented that so that no one else could use it. And so I was sort of thinking like, yeah, but now with ChatGPT, like they can easily come up with a far more complex system that you cannot actually patent, or it's outside of your patent.
I actually really wanted to play the second one of was it Shadow of War?
Shadow of War, yes.
But the only thing that put me off was that apparently I'd heard that it for some reason was a single player game that had the option for microtransactions, and it was saying that like to get to the end it was either going to be a massive grind or
give us money.
Yeah, I'm not. That's what I heard. And I know sometimes you do get people in the gaming community like
a bit hyperbolic.
They're like drama queens, but I was always curious to read into that to see if that was the case. I mean, there's probably certain YouTube channels you could probably rely on for,
objective and doing like a fair assessment of it.
There was one and apparently it came out 10 years ago. Not based on the Half-Life 2 engine, and apparently there's a sequel coming out. Well, it was scheduled for last year, so it's probably out this year. I know your typical zombie game, but it was no more. It was called No More Room in Hell. So
I remember hearing about that.
Based off, obviously, that's a quote from Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
But the whole setup was, it was. I'm guessing the way, you had your big maps, but it was always randomly generated. So there was apparently two modes. There was the survival and the objective base. So I think the survival was he got as many resources and survived as long as he could until he got evacuated. But the objective was, you had to get from one location. I'm guessing like Walking Dead. But the thing about this was that your supplies were scarce and the combat was a lot more sluggish. All the zombies were practically slow, but because the combat was slower and more jankier, it developed more tension. But the thing was, you could, for example, you had to be careful, that you maybe end up, being attacked and bleeding and needing something to stop your bleeding or getting an infection and trying to stop the infection from spreading.
Like a sim.
Yeah, that's like apparently.
A zombie sim.
But the thing that was interesting was that it gave you the option, much like zombie films, was that you could be potentially infected and you're gonna turn, but you could effectively tell your party or not. In which case, your character would drop dead and come back trying to attack the other players. Yeah. Or if it got to the point that you were down against it and you didn't think you were going to survive, you could shoot yourself in the head. But for looking obviously a bit dated now, there's people saying that it had a lot more atmosphere and personality than the AAA games. That the way there's so many AAA games with zombies in them.
Very carbon copy. And there was a period there where everything was a zombie game. Again, I think the Walking Dead really affected that, where zombies became cool again, and so they're like, oh, zombies, everything's zombies.
I'm still trying to work my head around how Walking Dead got as many seasons. I'm not saying, I'm not to say like it didn't have its moments, but even like for someone who grew up with things like Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, I never expected it to get the following that it did, because it was just like zombies are like a niche horror trope. But
I kind of stopped watching it, at least at this point. From whenever I stopped watching it, it was fairly late on in the series. I think it's probably at the midpoint now these days, the amount of series there are for it. But I wonder if it became like, did it start becoming more of a drama that happened to have zombies in it rather than a zombie film or a zombie series?
I didn't mind that having the whole human dynamic, but I think it was just more you're watching it and there was episodes you're just like,
someone do something.
It was more like it felt like the fan favorite characters were effectively untouchable, and then you were getting like insight into characters who actually weren't that interesting, and you're going,
because they're here doesn't mean I need to know about them.
Yeah, you're just going, fair enough. Yeah, they're part of the story at the moment, but they're not very interesting. Yeah. I remember, what was it? I think it was the girl. I think her name was Tara.
Yes. Yeah.
But like they were giving you her backstory, and even before they give you the backstory, going, you haven't really given enough to make me go, I want to know more about her.
Because you didn't actually get a lot of time with her. Sounds weird, by herself.
No, it was always with other people.
Yeah, it was maybe about 4 or 5 other people, and you didn't get to know a lot of them really. Mm-hmm. And at that point, again, let's be honest, we for like the first season or two, it was like just Sean.
Rick.
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 It was all Rick, and then you maybe had a little bit of Shane here and there, and it was there sort of like competitiveness, obviously.
Sure, he was in it a lot longer than he's meant. I think in the comics, from what I know, he's meant to like get killed off fairly quick.
That's pretty much before they leave the campsite.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, like it's literally like maybe if they have like not the volumes, but like the slightly bigger graphic novel versions, like the second one of that.
Is that whenever they find out then still that if you die you come back anyway?
I think that didn't. I think that actually happened after the fact. So like they then went to the CDC and then they found that out. So I think that still happened at a later stage. But yeah, the fact Shane wasn't meant to like last that long.
But he was. You know what?
A fantastic actor.
Like. John Bernthald's amazing. Yeah, I don't really think I've ever seen him play anything bad. That was the first thing I've seen him in.
Oh yeah, like again, same for me. But he came out swinging.
Mm-hmm.
And The Punisher as well.
He's great. Yeah. What was other thing? There's been a few things he's been in. To be honest, there's probably loads of things I've forgotten. He was in Fury as well. He was in Fury.
That's right. See, I think he's one of those actors where you don't see him, you see the character, and so it's very difficult to actually come back and find like the roles that he's been in. But you know that you liked him in all of these movies when you're flying them up.
Yeah, it's like whenever whenever you see Seth Rogen, you know Seth Rogen.
Yeah, you don't remember, Steve from that other comedy movie. It's there's Seth Rogen in.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's an issue. Like, but maybe with the comedy stuff, but then again, you have other comedy actors that just like take in the role.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough one.
Right, shall we? I think we'll call this an episode because we are very terrible for carrying things on. And yeah. So this is episode 2. Hopefully you enjoyed our random ramblings. And yeah, hopefully this one didn't have any technical issues. All being well.
Here's something.
So yeah, thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see you next time.